Hello, my darlings. Hello, hello. How is everyone? Are you all good? It's been a while, kiddies. It's been a little while. It's been about a week, more than a week. I don't know, but I've had to make more videos, man. I gotta get on it. I've been lazy, been pissing about, have other things going on, lady tangs happening. So just got distracted, man. Distracted. Life is distracting. But, well, here we are, kiddies. Here's another Banksy one for you. Um, well, what are we talking about today, kids? What are we talking about? Although I've been wanting to make a more fuller Iran protest type of thing because I fell out of the headlines for a bit after the rocket attacks and the airplane crash. Don't really hear about Iran anymore because, well, they're systematically killing people in the streets. That's right, the fuckers are shooting people. And every time the internet in Iran goes down, you know they're killing. So for now, I still have to get on with that. But don't forget, the Iranian people are being killed out in the streets, boys and girls. Please let us not forget that. If you follow my Twitter, you'll know that I've retweeted and liked a lot of Iranian content. So if you want to go and twat me over there. But if you're after other things which have been on my mind, other things, especially Mr. Lister and his antics, well, I watched. In all honesty, all it was I watched Unwashed with Lister debating the other night, and it just seemed so pathetic. So I decided to. I mean, the man is piss weak. He is so pathetically weak on like so many levels that he pisses me off just having to endure him. So that's the reason why I kind of like, God, this man is pathetic. I'm amazed his semen still want to remain within him. I'm telling you, I think his own semen are rebelling against him. And that's why I was like, this man is so pathetically weak. It makes me sick to my stomach. Here's a people of a country who conquered the known world at one point, and here's this limp fucking noodle of a man, just spewing his bullshit into the he's I think Greta Thunberg should come and fucking, you know, chastise Lister for polluting the airways with his fucking vial, because I feel he has polluted me. I feel infested by him somehow. And this is what I wanna bring your attention to. I took away some of the graphics I had because I like stuff, because I want this message, I want this image to be burnt into the psyche of every European man that has a set of balls in between his legs and he doesn't consider himself trans bi testicle. Okay, if you're not a trans testicle individual and if you actually respect the set of balls between your legs, read this fucking thing. Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. And this is where we are, kiddies. This is where we're. Excuse me, had a little cough. And this is where we're at, boys and girls. I feel this is where we are. I feel someone like Lister has infested, and of his ilk, these weak, limp, pathetic men have you know have infested these great nations, that conquered and built ungodly things, towers and buildings and planes and weapons of mass destruction. How have you lost your balls so easily? How have you lost your fucking manhood so easily? Well, there goes the monetization on this one, even though I'm not monetized. Excuse me. Okay. It just, it. You see, this is what it is. This is what it is. You turned your fucking messiah into a limp-wristed gay man, and you wonder why your countries are fucking going to shit. Why you're losing to the Muslims. Sorry guys, had something in my throat. Not a penis. Definitely not a penis. But had something in my throat. So yeah, how is it? How have you lost so much of what you were so quickly? So easily? What happened? Where did the powerful Western man go? The one that did all these great things and built all these great things and created all these great arts and technology. What happened to you? What took away your testes? And how have you become so pathetic that a bunch of fucking Neanderthal third worlders roll into your country, propagate like fucking bacteria, and have taken your fucking soul away from you, taken your balls away from you? Now, you know, this isn't some kind of call to arms or to. I just want you to at least be a bit pissed at this, okay? I want you to be at least a little bit upset that this is the world in which you live in. You know, last night I listened to a chap called Ash, an individual called Ash, a Jamaican Christian. Now this individual, he threw the Quran on the floor on Sunday, and he stepped on it because of whatever anger that he was under pressure. He'd lost family members. I know he lost family members during New Year's, literally at beginning of January, I think end of Christmas, something like that. He's lost several family members, and I think he's harboring a lot of anger, and that's fair enough. And so maybe in a fit of anger he threw the Quran on the floor, and he stood on it because he was being goaded by what's it called, by what's his name, this guy called Deep. He's a Sikh convert to Islam. Anyway, last night this man was on COE's show, and he'd been I presume he'd received some severe death threats, threats to his family, threats to his life, and this man was sobbing on, and this is an elderly man. This is a man of his possibly 50s and 60s, and this man was crying. Now it could be that all this pressure is getting on him, all this pressure of the losses in his family, all the different things. Perhaps these are all bearing on him and all that. But this man was sobbing on a live stream because of a bunch of fucking third world Neanderthals threatening his life because he stepped on a Quran. I don't give a fuck. Wipe your ass with the Quran for all I give a shit. This is Great Britain. Wasn't it Great Britain once? Doesn't the acronym, the symbol GB stand for something? I don't know. Do they stand for anything anymore? What happened to that greatness? That in Great Britain, a bunch of fucking Muslims threaten a man and drive him to tears because he stood on their shitty book. Is this great anymore? Can Britain honestly hold that moniker of Great Britain anymore? I don't think they can anymore. I think Britain has lost that greatness. I don't think they can hold their head up and honestly say we are GB. You remember in the Olympics, Team GB? I don't think Britain can do that anymore. Not if this is the state of affairs. I think you guys are going to have to fucking go back and start reevaluating what greatness you have left. Where is your greatness, Britain? How can you call yourself great when a bunch of fucking Somalis and Ethiopians and fucking Sudanese and Syrians and Pakistanis dictate and drive your people, your Christian brethren, to tears because he stood on a shitty Quran? Fuck the Quran. Piss on the Quran for all I care. This is Great Britain, right? Isn't this the place where Protestants came about? They challenged the Catholic Church and the Orthodoxy. They stood against these things. And yet now a bunch of fucking Muslims drive your brethren into tears because of a fucking Quran. This was gut-wrenching to me. This was gut-wrenching to me that this country, the place that so many great things came, the place that defeated the fucking Nazis, has now succumbed to this. This is the face of your nation, Britain, okay? These soy fucking milquetoast piss weak men are the ones that represent this nation now. Is this the face of Britain? Is this what we should be worried about? Look at this. This is the face of.
Steve, you're in trouble, mate.
Look at this. Look at this. Look at the look of piss fucking fear in that man's eyes. Admittedly, it was because of another Englishman that at least stood up, and there is a handful of you guys still left out there, I guess. But this is humiliating to me. This is fucking disgraceful. I don't know. Maybe there were always weak men like this, but we just never let them have voices. We shut the fuck up. We shut them down before these cunts actually reproduced much or actually pretended to have any kind of importance in our society. Maybe that's why this country did it. Maybe the British, the Englishmen, or those with balls still hanging between their legs. Maybe they were the ones who shut these fuckers down. They slapped them with a fucking glove and asked them to a duel on the fucking hill. I think we should bring back dueling again so we can cull some of these fuckers from our society. I think dueling should come back. Nice fucking saber right through this cunt's fucking gut, so that way we can cull them from reproducing in our society again. Because I fear, that this 14 thing, I fear that if these are the people reproducing, even if you get the birth rates up, but the birth rates are of these fucking people, if Lister is one of those that is producing children in this country, I don't think this can be saved. I don't think your future is safe here. Now, I say this as a foreigner because I like living here. I may or may not reproduce in this country. I may or may not even end my days in this country. I would love to, but at this current rate, I don't think I could be able to. I fear the future of this fucking nation. I fear the future of Europe. I see it in Stockholm. In Sweden, Germany, France. I see it in all these places. You're being overrun by infestation. It's fucking Star Wars troopers all over. I don't know. I fear bad. Now, the thing is, when I was looking, I googled the term weak men to look for some weak-ass, piss-weak pictures before I came across this fucking gem, which was just ideal for my fucking video. But I was looking for a thumbnail, and I typed weak men. And guess what? Look at the shit that comes up when you type weak men in Google. Strong women scare weak men. Look at this. Strong women only intimidate weak men. Yes, that's what it is. That's what weak men. Weak excuses. I'm not entirely sure that one. But look at the feminist fucking propaganda here. Look at all the feminist propaganda that I see here. This is the shit that comes up for the majority of the searches for just weak men. Is you have to be subservient to a strong woman. If you're scared of a strong woman, you're the weak man. It's not that you're piss weak because you let women fucking run riot all over you. No. You're not. If you're under the heel of a weak man, if you're this fucking chump, if you're this simp, that's strong, right? Don't This is apparently. I don't look at this. Armed women scare weak men. Actually, armed anyone scares a fucking anyone. You have a fucking gun, I think you're pretty shit scared anyway. But strong women scare weak men. This is the shit that comes up in the first top half of fucking Google with the occasional this. But that's not what I'm talking about when I say weak. This is not what I'm talking about. In this day and age of guns and grenades, weak. You don't need muscles. I'm talking about weakness of mind, weakness of character. Only weak men fear strong women. No, actually, it's not weak men that fear strong women. I don't fear strong women. I'm aware of the feminist propaganda that you're shoving down my fucking throat, though. I'm definitely aware of that bullshit, and I'm not buying into it. Now, this was a very good quote that I found, which I think is worth noting. Let me see if I can get it up. That's what she said. Weak men act. Weak men act to satisfy their needs. Strong men their duties. Now, this to me, by the way, this sounds like an Arab man as well. It's Nassim something. I forgot the full name. Is an Arab or a Middle Eastern sounding man who's actually trying to tell you. He could be Pakistani, I guess. It's certainly an Asian man is trying to tell you about duty, because I think that's what it is. Really, you've lost your sense of duty. It's all about making yourself happy. It's all about just what can I do to make me happy and make sure nobody hurts my feelings. Nobody hurts your fucking feelings, Lister. Trust me, nobody's gonna hurt your fucking feelings. I don't know, man. I don't know. I felt fucking sick to my stomach when I heard Ash cry. Not because it's wrong. It's weak to cry. I don't believe in that shit. Again, weakness of character, not weakness of acts. Let me on. Don't be scared, weakling. Okay. The ticket, the actual link is in the description, by the way, Lister. Oh, there he is. Okay, hold on 1 second. Let me. I have to filter some things out. Sorry, I have a little moment of ranting that I do myself first. I actually do a bit of monologuing before I open the panel, Lister. So don't get your panties in the twist. Is he there? Are you there, Lister?
Afternoon, even.
Lister?
Can you hear me?
Actually,
Hello?
I don't know if he's there anymore.
Hello? Can
Hello,
you hear
Lister.
me?
You're on.
Hello.
Can you hear?
Hello.
Shit, I can't hear you, Lister.
Hello.
I cannot hear you. It's on the other show.
I can hear you.
It's on the other channel. Good afternoon. Sorry, Lister, I can't actually hear a word you're saying. What's going on here?
I can hear you and my
hello.
Can you hear me now?
Hold on, Lister. Hold on. Okay, go, Lister.
Hello.
Aha! Yes, sorry. I can. It was my headset. It's not your.
Yeah, I was say my mic's definitely.
Yeah. No, it was my headset. My headset is a wireless one, and it turns itself off after a little while if it's not being used. And we have the Mr. Bass Welshman too. Bass, you there?
Of course, we have Bass Welshman here. What wouldn't this be without one of my trolls jumping on at the same time?
Well, I mean, to be honest, the panel is open to all. I'm not worried. Anyone who wants to come on can come on.
As soon as this cunt interrupts me, I'm just gonna.
Okay, Bass. Listen. I tell you what. We'll do it nice and fairly, guys. Hold on. Let me just get this out. We'll time everyone. Everyone gets a full minute. To do their thing. You can rant, you can rave, you can scream, you can shout. You get a minute, but after a minute, you stop. You get your minute, but you then stop. I don't care whether you've made the point or not. That's it. You get your minute. Do you guys prefer more than 1 minute? First of all, before I go. Is 1 minute fair?
1 minute's fair.
Okay, 1 minute, 60 seconds, fair amount of time. Everybody gets a good back and forth. Okay, Lister, 1 minute. You start now. Bass, give him a minute.
I mean, to call me weak when I go into massive crowds of hostile crowds, most of whom hate my guts, to call me weak is just a bit fucking silly, to be honest. I go into these places on my own, without threatening people, aware of the fact that I could get the shit kicked out of me, and to call that weak, I mean, come on. And that video you just showed of the booing, like, I turned to the camera because the guy said my name. Like, I apparently look scared, but I'm still stood behind the guy after he's booed me, saying, "Yeah,
No,
what
no,
are you
actually,
gonna
that's
do?"
you leaving. But okay, keep going. 17
Yeah, but
seconds.
I had to leave because the police told me to.
Yeah, yeah, but that was the image that I was showing. Is the minute you realized that you had to actually leave with that guy. I'm sorry, the minute
No,
is up.
I
I
kind of
apologize. Go
knew
ahead,
that
another
it
five
was
seconds.
likely. Like the policeman was saying, both of you out the park, out the park. I realized that I would have had to left, but I thought there might have been a chance of being able to persuade the police that that's a
Time up
fucking
now.
ridiculous. It's a ridiculous, like, get him out the park
There
with
we
the
go.
guy who wants to fight him outside the park. Surely they would have realized that and been like, "Yeah, actually, mate, you can wait here a bit until that guy fucks off."
I see, I see. Okay, based. You get 1 minute. Go. Go, based. Doesn't quite have the same impact on online.
No,
So scary.
Go,
it's like
based.
a public service announcement. It is really the way Lister's spreading himself around at the moment. It's like he actually wants to get attacked because this is the problem he's got at the moment. He's spreading himself so wide, people are getting to know what he's all about, and I think he actually wants to get attacked. The problem you've got with that is that some fucking lunatic might actually hurt him, and that's what I don't
Well,
want.
maybe you should convince the lunatics within your fan base that that's not a fucking good idea.
Well, I thought, wait a minute. Maybe you shouldn't go to a Tommy Robinson rally and then shout Tommy Robinson's a cunt or whatever you did that day.
That's
And maybe you
fucking
shouldn't do
Tommy.
that.
Well, yeah, Lister. Okay, sorry. Okay, based. You're done. You're 1 minute done. Sorry, I'm gonna take 1 minute myself. A couple of things. Based. Sorry, Welsh. Welsh. No, Lister. Two things. When you say you go to these scary places as if they are some sort of scary places, actually, statistically,
Hold on.
no, I'm not saying you're scared. I'm not saying you're scared. I'm saying you consider yourself brave for going to these places which are these scary sort of Tommy Robinson places, and you walk up to Paul Golding and call him a cunt, and that's supposedly brave. But actually, if you want to be really brave, because you're part of the mainstream, you're doing something the mainstream does. Something really brave is walking up to a bunch of Muslims and then taking a piss on the Quran. That is actually far braver, because that actually shows that is against the mainstream, that is against the grain. But to call Paul Golding a cunt isn't actually that brave, because you know that he's not going to do anything. There are police everywhere, and that you're perfectly safe.
There was hardly.
Go ahead, 1 minute.
There was hardly any police around that time. And
I saw the video with Paul Golding.
1 minute. Yeah, the police came after I'd been
Base, give him a minute. Base, give him a minute.
I'd been approached by a dozen of Paul Golding's followers before the police arrived that moment, so that I could have easily been.
God.
I've been assaulted
give him
numerous times. Here's the thing: when people say that I'm brave for doing this,
We've got a live stream.
Wait, Welsh, wait. Go.
When people say that, when I'm told that I am brave for doing what I do, I always say I'm not really. That it's not really that dangerous. My day job is more dangerous than doing what I do. So I'm not scared of these people. I don't think it is that brave to do what I'm doing. Like you just like, what do you guys do? When do you guys put yourself in danger? Are you upset that no one calls you brave? Like,
No. Okay, 1 minute done. Base Welshman, 1 minute. Go rebuttal.
Okay. Well, I've got nothing to say on that subject, but I mean, I know he.
No, listen. Give him his minute. Let him have his minute. Lister, come on.
I'm going to say something.
Lister, come on. Give him his minute.
Fucking
Lister.
Go on,
What do you want me to say? I think you only do it because you know the police are around. I mean, it's like last night. You just go around in a circle with someone. It is a pointless exercise discussing anything with you.
There was literally no police. Ask Raj. There was no police.
Okay, guys.
Which occasion? Well, the water fight. There was no. There was no police for the water fight when you got waterboarded by a Tommy fan. That was
literally no police.
You got waterboarded.
In the facility.
Guys, hold on. One at a time. Sorry, Welsh. What was that? I missed the last bit.
He got waterboarded by
Yeah,
Tommy
yeah. I mean,
Frank.
is it actually? I mean, is it really? Have you actually been waterboarded ever, Lister?
I've never described that as waterboarding. That those words have never come out of my mouth. So
I know they come out.
Who actually then spread this rumor?
cannot describe things that come out of my mouth how I describe them. I've literally never said the word waterboarding in relation to that event.
No, I know it was us. It was us because you bring it up all the time, like it was some like vicious
So this
assault
was-
when someone.
No, I'm bringing it up as an example because you're saying that
You always bring it up.
I'm scared.
By the way, chat, listeners from very northern town called Corby, the worst northern towns in the country.
Let me finish.
Yeah, let him do so. Okay, 1 minute, Lister, go.
You keep saying that I'm scared and I'm like staying by police, but there was legit no police around when I had that debate with Kevin Carroll.
I didn't say you're scared.
Wait, Welsh, wait.
Hold your tongue.
Just give him a minute. He's got 30 seconds, 45 seconds. Go.
I didn't class it as a waterboarding. There was literally no police around because as soon as I was assaulted, I needed to be escorted out of there. And then when I did get to the police, I didn't even tell them what happened.
Okay, then.
And then we have Ralph fucking coming up to me.
And then you have
me.
Wait, Welsh, please give him.
Throwing water on me. Give me an extra fucking 20 seconds for this cunt because he's fucking pissing me off.
Okay, I paused it.
The next week he puts water on me, and then I retaliate, and then all of a sudden I'm harassing him, and he's getting me done for a hate crime, and yet he's the one who keeps stepping to me every fucking week and stepping to me every fucking debate that I do online. Oh, I'm harassing him, I'm stalking him, yet he cannot handle me being somewhere talking to his buddies without him being there to defend them.
Okay, Welsh, you got 60 seconds. Respond, please. You want to respond or shall I respond? I can respond.
He's literally got nothing to say. What is he doing here?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's an open panel. I allow anyone who wants to have it their say. But okay, I will put it. I will make a statement then in that case because I've got.
Make this a one-on-one and get him out of here.
No. Listen, chill. Don't worry, dude. People can.
Need him to help you out, do you? You're not that scared, are you?
I'm not. I just. It's an open panel. Anyone else who wants to jump on, they can jump on. I'm not gonna kick anyone off if they want to have something to say. But I'm more than happy to have this discussion.
No, I'm happy to have this discussion. But if Based Welshman is here just to interrupt me until it's his turn to speak, and then he's just going to say, I've got nothing to say, there's literally no point in being here. So let's just have a one-on-one chat.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just, as I said, there's another person waiting in the queue that wants to come on as well. I'm more than happy. But that's why I'm doing it 1 minute at a time. So that way everybody gets their minute. And so...
Yeah, but now it's 2-on-1 where it's 2 minutes versus 1 minute. So why don't we just have...
No, I'm more than happy to give you 2 minutes for every 1 minute someone else takes if you want that. You feel better about that? Would that suffice?
Well, how about we go you, me, and then the other guy, me, you, me, the other guy, me? Because then if the other guy says something, then you respond to that. Then I'm going to forget what he said to respond to him.
Exactly. But what I mean is, the thing is, if you do it that way, then the point he wants to make will take too long. It will take like 3-4 minutes for him to be able to come in on a point that was made like 3 minutes ago. So that's going to be
there we go. So then I'm always going to be against the odds. And then here we've got another one of Ralph's favorite fucking cult following who also loves to follow me around now. Literally everywhere I go, he goes. Like, I'm not here to speak to the people that follow me around, Banksy. I'm here to speak to you.
Okay.
I thought you want competition. You just said you want competition and you want Based Welshman out because he has nothing
You're not even
to say.
listening to the word I'm saying. When have I said the word competition?
You said Based Welshman should just go away because he has not.
I'm not here for a
three-on-one.
No. Okay. Fair enough.
I have something to say.
Just go and just not engage with you at all.
Yeah, guys. Fair enough. Okay, I tell you what, guys. Lister, you and I. Let's say 4 minutes of 1 minute a piece. That's back and forth. And we'll have this one-on-one. No one else, please. Just interfere. If you want to have this one-on-one, we'll have a small one-on-one session. See how that goes. If it's productive, we might extend it. If not, we'll just call it an end on that. So it's a one-on-one situation. You and me, 1 minute apiece. It's civilized. We'll just simply discuss this. What points do you want to start with? Do you want to start with your 1 minute? Do you want me to make a statement? How do you want to get this?
You make your statement, because I missed. I just caught up with like a few minutes of the first 10 minutes and then jumped on. So
okay, well, okay. In that case, I'll clarify my position. Now, although I used you and your image as a catalyst for this conversation, because it was you that came to my to my mind when I was thinking about the weakness of the English society. But the larger point I was making was the weakness of the Western man. It wasn't so much just you, but it was the larger point. That's why I put up that image. I don't know if you saw the image of a society. It's the image that says, "Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times." Now, this is a kind of a meme that's been going around for a while, and that was the central point that I was making. Although you were I used you as a main image, but it was, I could have used any, man bun wearing, bearded, hipster type. So it just happens that my audience happens to know your image fairly well, so I knew that would resonate with them.
I'm a hipster type with a man bun now.
Well, no, but what I mean is, I could have replaced your image with any of those, and it would have sufficed as far as my central point was concerned.
So what's weaker? Someone who chats shit online like majority of the time and doesn't put himself in danger, and then has like and then has the guy who he's claiming is weak jump on the panel straight away to defend himself, who's then backed up by this person, me, two of his fucking harassing, stalking trolls.
No, I'm willing to have everyone else quiet. That's what I've done.
Being the unweakest that I can possibly be at the moment, and I'm surrounded by
Welsh, please mute yourself.
The most out of like the top 10, and they're still trying to interrupt me as I talk when we've just agreed that it's 4 minutes apiece between.
I haven't said fuck.
No, Welsh, please, Welsh.
Still cannot shut his mouth because he's so weak-minded that he can't listen to instructions.
No. Don't address anyone else. That way, it won't incite them.
So he's called me a cunt.
Welsh.
Called me a cunt.
Welsh, please.
No, he's called me a cunt.
I know,
he's called me a prick. He's called me a troll.
Oh, he can't handle the dirty words.
Look, Welsh. The thing is, in order for this to seem fair, I have to abide by my own standards of, look, we agreed that it will be a one-on-one. He wanted a one-on-one, and I agreed to give him the one-on-one. Although he still actually has a further. Well, your time is kind of running out, but let's give you a further 20 seconds to wrap it up.
Just in future, every time for the next 3 minutes, these two interrupt. Please add on an extra 30 seconds. That will prevent them from interrupting me because they obviously don't want me to talk.
Okay, you're okay. Now you've got a good 30 seconds left. Keep going. What else do you want to finish off on?
No, I'm finished.
Are you done? Okay. Now, as far as bravery is concerned, now I'll explain my position. My position is, and let me reset my timer so I don't go over. My position is, I'm not talking about myself as being a big and brave person. I am putting up a mirror in front of your average European who is the native of this country. I'm not a native of Britain. I am a citizen of Britain. I love Britain. I think it's a great country, and I want to keep it a great country. But I fear that it is losing it. It is losing that greatness. And so I'm simply trying to put up a mirror. I'm not saying I'm some sort of brave revolutionary that is going to do that. This is not for me to fix. The same as the Iranian situation and the Iranian regime. It is not for English people to get rid of the mullahs. It is for the Iranians to get rid of the mullahs. I will never ask an Englishman to come and fight an Iranian war for me or an Iranian revolution for me. And so I will never ask and I will never imply that an Iranian should rescue the English from themselves. It is the English that should rescue themselves. So as an Iranian, I'm not saying I'm big and bad and I'm brave and I'm this. I am simply trying to point out what I see as what is happening to this country, and I don't like what I see. I fear for the future of this country because if I don't have children myself, I have brothers who have children, and their children are going to grow up in a society which is going to be Muslim dominated, because weak men will be supplanted by strong men. Weakness doesn't just, it doesn't evaporate into nothingness. It gets supplanted. And strong men will supplant weak men, unless those weak men stand up. So I'm sorry, I've gone a little bit over my time, but go ahead, Lister.
So we're not going to get overrun with Muslims anytime soon. The Muslim population is increasing by 1% each fucking decade, and it's only at like 6% now. So that would take...
shit.
Wait. Let's Basement, please.
On. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So,
go on.
Bullshit.
Okay, listen.
I've got like 2 minutes. Thank you very much, Based. So, like, so weak-minded that he literally cannot hold his fucking tongue for 2 seconds. Like, what a fucking... And here he goes again.
Go on.
Still can't do it. Like, that weak mind of Based Welshman is just...
Based, please, let him have his minute. Just do it for 1 minute, Based. You just have to hold your tongue for 1 minute. Please.
1 minute, another 2 minutes.
It's not even 1 minute anymore. It's like 35 seconds. Please. I've paused it for now, but Lister, please go finish your statement, and Based Welshman, I'll promise you will get a full minute after this.
Seriously,
go ahead.
Get kicked off if he fucking interrupts me again.
Go ahead, Lister, go now.
Like, so I can't remember my point. This is exactly like, what was I saying?
You were saying we were not going to get overrun by Muslims anytime soon.
Yeah, so we're not going to get overrun by Muslims anytime soon. The Muslim population is growing 1% every decade. That will slow down once birth rates decline to in line with the same as ours. So if it's increasing by 1% every decade, it would take at least 400 years for us to be a Muslim majority country.
So you don't believe that any of this is exponential and it can double and triple the growth patterns?
No.
So you think that it will just be at 1% every decade? Okay, and so just steady like that. Hold on, Based. He's got 30 seconds.
As the country gets bigger, so let's say the country's population was 50 million. 1% of 50 million is 500,000. But 1%, let's say the country grows in size to 100 million, then 1% of 100 million is 1 million. So as the country grows, that percentage, that 1%, means a bigger and bigger.
No. I'm not talking about numbers. So the actual numbers.
When you're looking at percentages to describe how many people are in the country, it doesn't give you a total number. So when you're looking at the difference from a percentage from 1 year to another, it's meaningless when you're talking about replacements and genocides and like the white population is still on the increase. So there is literally no way that when you look at the stats in a scientific and mathematical way, instead of just, the trend is going that way and drawing a straight ignorant line, like following it, which is not how to do data analysis, then you'll see that there's going to be no replacement, even the way that you guys describe. Well, I won't say you guys, but the ethnonats or the cignats.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Welsh. You get 1 full minute. Say everything you need to say. Based Welshman.
He's got nothing to say.
Based?
He shouldn't be.
No. Hold on. He might have walked away while we were talking. Based, are you there? Okay, fair enough. He's not here right now. I would give him a full 1 minute when he comes back. So he can. Well, the thing is, he's on the panel. He wants to have his say. That's fair enough. Now, I wish actually, Ralph was available so that he could address the stats, because I don't agree with your analysis. I don't think that when we're talking when I was talking about the growth rates, I wasn't talking about if growing exponentially by the numbers. I was talking about the percentages doubling and tripling and quadrupling, and I see that happening. I mean, right now the Muslim population of this country has surpassed 3 million, and they are about 5% of the population.
So
And
you see how it's easier to double from 1% to 2% than it is to double from 10% to 20%.
well, I mean, the 10% to 20% perhaps, but I think that the numbers will exponentially grow, and not only the numbers. You see, it's not just about the numbers. If we're talking about the Jewish population, for example, the Jewish population have always remained at a very small number of people, but their power and influence is incredibly large. So just because you have a small population in numbers, that doesn't mean I'm interested in who's going to govern this nation, who's going to influence this nation, and who's going to make laws in this nation. And at the moment, although these certain groups seem to have small numbers, they do seem to have tremendous amount of power and influence in our governments. And so I am interested in that, and seems to be sort of odd unities or odd coalitions going on with like feminists and Muslims and other things, which I see as the Muslims simply clinging on to these groups because they're what they call them sort of easily manipulated sort of fools in order to get their agenda.
Is it not because it's usually the left who protect people's religious freedoms, and so in return that inspires religious people to then protect the freedoms of gay people and feminists?
No, the religious people don't protect
the minorities and the oppressed.
Well,
generally realize that it's better that they stick together as opposed to fighting against each other, against the oppressed, and ignoring the oppressors.
Well, this is I think this is maybe that's what it is. This is the foolhardy of the left, is that they have this this set of principles that we should always protect the minorities and religious freedoms, and that has led them to have this sort of, if you like, ungodly union with Muslims, in which the Muslims themselves don't share those principles, but they will use the lefties to attain their position of power and influence. When they do, they will crush those very same people that help them to gain those power and influence.
No, so the Ottoman Empire never made gay sex illegal, and it's still. I don't think it's illegal still in Turkey to this day.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about a single individual Muslim nations.
We're doing a minute each, or
sorry.
what?
Okay, sorry. Go ahead. Let me restart my timer here. Sorry. Okay, go.
So yeah, the Ottoman Empire never made gay sex illegal. So to suggest that they have some ingrained like opposition to it is not true. Like I say, I disagree with Muslims on their religion, but I will defend a Muslim's right to exist. I disagree. Like, I disagree with. I mean, I'm not going to have sex with a guy, but I will defend a man's right to have sex, to exist, for having sex with a guy. That's the thing. Like, I think most Muslims will not ask someone who's been attacked on the streets, oh, hold on, mate, are you an atheist? Are you gay? Or are you any of these, do you have any of these characteristics that make you anti-Islam? So I'm just going to let you get attacked. Life doesn't work like that.
Well,
people see injustice, and no matter what their beliefs are, the victim's beliefs are, people will jump in to defend them without knowing them, without even being aware of them.
Okay, thank you. No worries. Okay, I have some rebuttals to that, but Base Welshman, you're now back. Would you like to make a statement for a minute? And also Illendor, if you want to come in on this, I wouldn't mind now. I think we've had enough back and forth between you and me, listeners, that we can let others join in. Based, are you there? Can he hear me? Oh God, every time I ask him, he's not there. And Illendor, are you there? No, neither of them seem to be around.
Yeah.
You are. Fantastic. Okay, if you'd like to make some kind of comments or reply or rebuttal of these, you have 1 minute, sir.
Yeah, fascist be aware was all over the place. I don't know where to start. We started by him questioning. First, he said, "I was following him around." If you look at the chat, I was in your stream before fascist be aware, or fascist as I call him now. Be aware was on, so it was not that way. I'm on the
You jumped
channel,
on
and you
tonight.
are
You jumped on
following.
Hold on, Lister. Now you're giving extra time to Illendor because he has a minute and you interrupted. Please
Nice.
control yourself.
Yes, so that was a wrong statement. He's following us all around and then complains when I join in, right? Because he's afraid. But I wouldn't even jump in because I think Banksy has done a great job holding up on his own. I was only jumping in because you accused Based Welshman that he has nothing to say, and he and that you want to speak to someone that has something to say. So I joined.
Okay.
You both just
Lister,
admitted
if
that you
1
got
minute,
nothing
go.
to say. You both just admitted that you got nothing to say. Base Welshman was asked to say something and he didn't say anything. You've just been asked to respond to me and you just said you've got nothing to say.
Hold on, Base. Hold on. You get a minute. You get a hold on for 30 seconds, and you get a minute for yourself, Base. Go ahead, Lister. Do you want to finish yourself?
So even Ilondur just said that he has nothing to say. He's just going to let Banksy do the talking because he's already done a good job on it. So these two people have just both admitted demonstrably and by their own words they have nothing to say. Base, what do you have to say?
Okay. Let Base 1 minute, sir. It's all good. Go for it. Say what you need to say. Base.
Oh, hello. I can speak now. Can I speak now?
Sorry, dude. I gave you like 3 opportunities.
Now,
I'm sorry. I called you for 3 times.
You give me 3 opportunities. Well, some of us actually go to work.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm off today. That's why I'm chilling.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Some of us actually are working while we're on the phone.
I see. Go on, Base. You got a good minute. You got a full minute. Take advantage.
Okay, so can you answer me this question, Lister? How long was it between the first altercation with Ralph to the time where you poured water over his head?
Okay, you're going back and forth, or you're going to make a 1 minute statement? Okay, listen. Remember that. Let Base. Do you need the answer in order to carry on?
Well, I would like the answer. It's a question.
Okay, no. But what I mean is, you can finish off like your full minute, and then he can come back with that.
No, it's fine.
Is that okay? Okay, then Lister, do you wanna reply to that?
Yours.
So the length of time was the length it needed for me to find the bottle of water between Bob's legs, and yes, I did steal. I did steal. Can I have my minute to finish?
Well, you finish this. Base is still time.
So I ask a question. He has a minute. This is
no. That's not how it works. The thing is, I want everyone. The thing, but the thing is, Base. The only way this would work, if you want to do a Q&A session, then it's going to have to be more fluid. You can't do a minute a piece. But if you want to have a statement, you want to make a statement without being interrupted, then I can give you that 1 full minute. But if you want a QA scenario, then it's gonna be you can't have timing for a Q&A situation. So you have to make a decision.
Treatment. I understand he needs special treatment. I'll ask a question. He can then vent for 2 minutes. Okay, go on. You can vent. Go on.
To speak, and you've not done it. Now, will you allow me to answer the question that you asked me?
Okay, let's go ahead. Answer your question.
Give him 2 minutes. Give him 2 minutes.
I need 2 minutes to answer the question.
Okay, go ahead, Lister. Answer the question, and I'll keep a time, but it won't be strict. Go ahead.
So, Ralph threw the water over me, and it just so happened that he had none left in his bottle. So that means he didn't get any water on himself, which means I had as long as I wanted to.
No, that wasn't the question. The question was
how long? Yeah, he's getting there. He's getting there. Base
to the second incident.
Yeah, but Base, he's getting there. He's getting there. Hold on. Go on, Lister.
I don't believe.
I just want a minute. 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 2 minutes.
Hold on. He's getting there.
I don't believe that water fights are violence. I will not initiate a water fight, especially with someone that I know doesn't want one. However,
okay, so can I throw water over you then, and it's not violence?
Base, hold on.
Are you giving me a green light to throw water over you?
No, but
if you want to lose a water fight, then go for it. You do it.
I tell you what. I
You
will
fucking lose. And you will always lose because you don't have the fucking brains to have a water fight and take it on the chin without resorting
Take it on the chin. I tell you what. I tell you what. Take it.
He's harassing an old man. Oh, he's bullying.
Right. Yeah. Look at it.
Victim.
Just vent.
Me on the far right. I'm a victim.
Okay. Guys. This is now degenerating to an argument.
You can't even allow me to have 2 minutes.
Base had to drop off. Okay. Listen, Lister. I will simply make a statement. This is not going to be Q&A from my part. What I will say is that whether Ralph, was trolling you or he incited you, the bottom line is it comes down to maturity. It comes down to a demonstration of maturity. Ralph may have been a bit immature. You responded with an equal, if not greater, level of immaturity.
I agree.
To me, this was all a downward spiral of immaturity. Now, what I'm trying to say to you is that from everybody else's perspective, Ralph's little thing was actually very tiny. He's actually quite clever about it, and it didn't seem like a big deal because it was off camera. Even though there were multiple cameras, so some of them with the other cameras you could actually see what was happening. But with your demonstration, it actually made you look incredibly petty because it was a much greater, bigger demonstration than Ralph's little flick of water. So what I'm saying is, image or your optics was far worse and far petty looking than his. It made him look better.
I'm not standing on a platform trying to say, hey, look at this ideology I've got. Come and follow me. All I aim to do is to oppose fascists.
But
hold on.
Okay,
I don't care how that makes me look. And if they're using,
hold on, Base. Give him his minute.
If they're using,
this is absolutely pathetic.
I know, but it's hard.
No. Every time I speak, you say, "I'll give him."
No, but Base.
Yeah, but Base, I haven't said fuck all.
Yeah, but Base,
you've had the fucking option numerous times to speak, but you've kept your mouth shut.
No, because he's at work. Look, Lister, you got to realize, Base Welshman is at work. He has to walk away every so many minutes.
Work and get on with his day.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, it's difficult for him, so we do have to. I mean, I didn't realize.
Just sit here and just listen to nothing and to keep getting interrupted.
I know. This is what I mean. This is why things are a bit awkward.
Base, maybe come back later.
How long was it between the first incident and when you retaliated?
Yeah, but the thing is, it was several minutes. It was several minutes.
I don't know. See, all right?
Sorry, what happened, Base?
I said, I'm not asking you, Banksy. Lister, how long was it?
Okay, go ahead, Lister.
For me,
no.
Will you allow me to finish?
Yeah. Let it. It took him a while to get the water.
I have a minute now, so you will shut your mouth and allow me to finish answering this question for the next minute, unless I finish earlier, and then you can respond. Is that
okay? You've got a minute to answer. You've got a minute to answer. Literally, what? 2 words. 2 words.
Okay. Listen. No. Hold on, guys. If this is going to be a Q&A, a minute thing doesn't work. Look, Lister, just answer the question as best as you can, and Welshman, try to listen to his answer.
You got a minute to answer the question.
Go ahead, Lister.
It would have been answered by now if you fucking stopped interrupting.
Yeah. Just let him answer.
Seriously, shut your mouth, and this will take about 30 seconds.
Okay, go. Listen, leave it. Just go.
Half an hour. Do you not understand that?
Yeah. Okay. Listen, leave it. Just go.
Right. So, it took as long as it needed to take for me to find a bottle of water, which just so happened to be between Bob's legs, which had about the same amount of water as Ralph's had. His throwing of that water landed all on my arm. There was literally no water that landed on the floor there, and I had to work in the fucking freezing cold with a wet arm. Like, do you know how difficult that is in like almost 0 degrees conditions outside when you're moving through the fucking air at like 40 miles an hour?
Yeah.
So it took long enough. Bob will get a new bottle of water next time.
Okay,
So you stole Bob's bottle of water.
And I will thank him very much for letting me
Can
borrow
I
it.
jump in now?
Very much.
Can I jump in now? So I timed him. It's taken him a minute not to answer the question.
No, he just did.
No, that's it. He said, as long as it took me to go to between Banksy's legs, smell his ass, and then pick up the bottle between his legs. Okay, so how
Bob's.
minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes in the difference? How long?
Well, he doesn't know. He doesn't know the timing. He just
Go fucking time it. Like,
yeah. Well, why does the timing matter? No, but hold on, listener.
I tell you why it matters. I'll tell you why it matters.
Okay.
It matters because if he didn't retaliate within half a second, right? It's not self-defense. Okay.
It's not violence. I don't
Well, okay, so it's premeditated.
That's right.
Okay, so
he's not stupid. That's why he won't answer the question.
What? I don't
Well,
even. I don't,
the thing is-
I'm agreeing with you. It wasn't self-defense.
but he's agreeing with you.
Base Welshman, me retaliating wasn't self-defense. It's a water fight.
It was
water
a-
fight.
It was yeah. I mean, base. Listen, sorry. Let me try and explain to you the way I just said it. While you were actually not on the panel, and I don't think you were listening. I said to Lister, I said, what Ralph did with a little bit of, flicking of water, he kind of did it very subtle-like, and it didn't appear to be, I mean, it was childish, and both acts were incredibly immature, and Lister even agrees with that. This was just an immature series of events. But what I told Lister, and this is, I think, what you may have missed, is I said to him, Ralph doing what he did may have seemed a little bit childish, but what Lister did in the optics just looks very, very petty. And he even acknowledges that. He didn't deny that. It's a very petty thing to do. And the optics of that is not good for Lister. But Lister says, I'm not standing on a platform trying to convince people of my, righteousness or whatever. But actually, Lister, I disagree with you. You are standing on a platform. You stand on platforms all the time, trying to tell people that your way of thinking and your way of life and your way of behavior is better than Ralph's and others.
No, I never do that.
No, you do. You do by your statements, by your actions, by the fact that you say that person over there is a fascist or a racist or whatever, and that person is bad. You are implying that your way of thinking and your way of behavior is better than theirs, and that is why that person is bad. So when you point the finger at other people, you naturally and automatically are implying that what you are doing is better than theirs. That is why that's a bad person. Otherwise, how do you differentiate between what is a good person and what is a bad person?
I'm not trying to make people do anything. I'm just trying to open their minds to what.
It's implied. It's implied.
For fuck's sake.
Okay, Base, go. Listen. Let Base go for a minute.
Yeah, look.
You understand the concept of taking turns.
I know. Listen, let him go. Let him go. Listen, let him go. He doesn't have time.
I'm not listening to you. Listen to Banksy.
Listen, guys.
And I don't have time to talk over you.
Guys, hold on. Nobody's gonna hear anyone here.
Now for as long as you want. I don't have time.
Guys, nobody's gonna understand either of you. Wait, one at a time. Lister. Damn it, he's gone. Okay, Base. Now at least say what you want to say. I know you wanted to say something.
Well, I wanted to say it to him, but the old pussy boy just runs away.
No, but the thing is, if you interrupt him and if he interrupts you, neither of you get anything. You can't hear anyone. It becomes just a massive mess.
I'm sorry if you go back half an hour and you work out who's been doing about 80% of the chat in the last half hour.
But Base.
And whenever he's my campaign, he won't let me say a word.
No, Base. What you don't realize is the series of events that took place was that first of all, Lister came on here to challenge me because I used his image and I've been mocking him throughout the beginning of my stream. So he came here for that reason. Second of all, when I gave you several opportunities to talk, you were away. So from our perspective, from our linear,
it doesn't matter.
Time,
it doesn't matter if I'm not there to talk, and then when I do come back and I want to make one sentence.
Yeah, Yeah, but
it's just one sentence.
Yeah, but
then it takes him, Banksy. It takes him about 5 attempts to tell me and actually not tell me how long it took him.
Well,
He just because it wasn't within minutes. It wasn't within minutes. From the first assault to the second assault, it wasn't like a minute or
Yeah,
something.
but he's not denying that. It's on video. It took us several minutes. He then went and found another bottle of water and he poured it on Ralph in a petty and childish way. Yeah, it's a very, very petty thing that he did. And I think he admits to that.
He didn't admit to it.
No, he did.
Look, guys. Based Welshman is right. Lister has had the most time to speak on this panel.
I agree.
Definitely, you can rewatch it. And the only guy who waited patiently, following the rules, not interrupting. Based interrupted Lister, as well as Lister has interrupted Based Welshman, but Based Welshman was more on the right to interrupt because Lister has way more time than him.
Right? I agree, but the thing is...
But I was waiting patiently, just making one statement, right, for 1 minute, and then he fucking leaves. So I can't get back to the points I wanted to make. And he was saying, okay, I want people that come on to have something to say. And as I joined then, by his request, right, he calls me a troll that has nothing to say, basically defamed me. So if you want to watch, if I have something to say against Lister, we watch the stream I had with Lister. He completely got destroyed, and this is why he calls us trolls or Ralph's fanboys or something. And then he stated also that we are following him around. I think the best way to describe this idiot is the projection man. Everything he's projecting from his opinion on us. He should show me the option on YouTube where I can follow him and see where he is on every stream. Yeah. I want to see that option. This is the point he has made.
I don't know it.
This fucking idiot. I mean, I was on Banksy style, following because I have subscribed to him, right? Having a nice chat. I think the rant was brilliant at the beginning, and having a laugh. And then this idiot comes on because he is following us. On every fucking channel around, not the other way around. Look, I go to his channel here. Water fight Lister Ralph. Lister speaks with Ralph. Tommy Robinson generation identity. He's always following us around and not the other way around.
He's got Tommy derangement syndrome and Ralph derangement syndrome. I won't even go to Trump. I mean, but that's the reality on the subject.
Okay, guys, we have the master at arms here himself. Ralph is on the panel. Oh, Ralph, sorry, can you mute yourself? You've got terrible background noise. I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead, Base.
I mean, he says we follow him. Yeah, I don't get notifications off his page, and he calls me a troll.
I've never subscribed to Lister, so I don't know what he gets up to.
Okay, so you can't follow him. I follow Banksy, and I follow Banksy live, and I subscribe and get all his notifications. That's how I knew Banksy was live. And when I looked up, and I see that ugly cunt on the screen, okay, it's game on. I mean, I don't know. I was going to go there.
Let me just make this one statement, guys. The reason I gave Lister an exceedingly longer amount of time than anyone else was because there was 3 people who were clearly on the opposite side of his arguments. So I did not want him to feel as if he is being stifled and he's not getting his say, because that's what he would use as an excuse to say, look, I went on his panel and 3 of them attacked me. 2
live streams in the last 2 days.
I know.
I know, but he hasn't had his chat, eh?
I know, but what I mean is that is the reason why I gave him far longer time, an excessive amount of time to have his say.
And still he
I know, but what I mean is I don't want him to go away and bitch and moan.
Treatment.
Yeah, but
He's
what I
got
mean
bitching
is,
mode anyway.
yeah, but I
Good.
don't want him to go away and start to use this and go, see, 3 of them attacked me and they call me weak because I went on there and I took on 3 of these guys and I didn't get any to say because they kept interrupting me. So I wanted that excuse not to be in play. I gave him plenty of time to have his say and have his opinion heard. So that's the reason why I gave him that space, because
Absolutely right.
because now he has to now go ahead, and this stream will always be here, and he can never say I went on there and I took 3 of them on and look how these right wingers or whatever constantly stop me from talking. So that's the real reason, guys. I gave him the amount of time. Now I would like Ralph to come in on this, because I'm sure he is he's got some interesting things to say in regards to the numbers and figures that Lister expressed. I don't know, Ralph, how's it going?
Hey, sorry about the background noise in the office, unfortunately. No, yeah, I mean, he has no data, and anything he says is absurd. He's been crucified by everyone. I say we don't think like that. It's irrelevant. We look at him and frame him in a narrative that is ours and only ours. Our job is to paint the left and the far left in this case as being something that just converts more people to our processes quickly. Because he can't ever win an argument against them. And he knows that. What we do wrong is when someone goes into a vanity project. So all of us are going tut to Nick last night. Because, Nick didn't even destroy him. He should only be brutalized, because then we paint the narrative that we're not here. Nothing else matters to us. And he's not important, right? He's just like a nuisance, right?
Yeah, I mean,
a public nuisance. He's not got any intelligent arguments, any data. That's why he runs a mile from people like myself, Elron, or anyone who has information.
well, this is the thing. Maybe, I don't know, maybe he saw you in text. That's why he jumped off. I'm not sure what the reason was. I mean, I presume that it was that he had his say, and now he can go away feeling good about himself because he came onto the stream that called him weak. I don't know. Again, I will reiterate, I didn't use Lister's image to have a go at Lister. It's what Lister represents is really what I'm more interested in. I feel that Lister is one of the representations of the weakness of the Western civilization, and that has seeped into our society badly. Here's a Street as well. We have a Street. How are you, my good sir, Mr. Street?
Afternoon, soldier.
Greetings, true friend. As
Actually,
the golden
right.
one would say.
But actually, you're precisely right, because what you're doing is you're painting a caricature of the moral liberal left, because he's emasculated, demasculated, ...
Yes.
All we have to do is reflect and paint, because I'll be doing a review stream of him and Nixon, and we'll have a look-see, and we'll just paint the narrative that frames him, and then our side looks at that and goes, right, that's the example of what not to do. Lister is not going to save the West, right?
Yeah,
he was talking about he's so brave for going against us. We are not having any power. You're not speaking truth to power here, fascist, be aware. Where's your videos where you address the people in power? I see no video on your channel where you speak about it. You only speak about us, the least powerful people here in the West. The whole system fights against us, not against you. You are in line with everything the people in power promoting all the time.
Exactly, Eliodor. This is precisely when he said, "I am brave and I go into these places with Tommy marches and Britain first, and how can you say I'm weak?" Those are not brave. You are the establishment. It's like a horde of police officers going into foot soldiers going into it's like saying that the what's it called, those in Star Wars, what do they call them, those white marine type, stormtroopers. Yeah, the stormtroopers marching in their thousands over a village. Then you turn around and go, you see, I'm a stormtrooper. I'm the weak one. I'm brave by going into this villagers and gunning them down. It's like, no, dude, you are part of the establishment. You're going to a minority and calling him a cunt, that isn't brave. That is you going into a minority crowd.
Actually, you're on the money, because in 2020 phase 2 and moving onwards, and even more so, we will be increasingly ignoring the left. But the left have no interest in us. They have no political power for 5 years, no executive, no judiciary, no executive power. All they've got is Twitter and harassers. Our job is on the right. Occasionally we have to tolerate these things, but increasingly we'll be intolerant of talking to them. They have nothing to give us, and we don't want anything from them. Right?
Yeah.
There you go.
They're chasing us. He's chasing us. We're not
Exactly.
chasing them. We're not coming for you. We're not looking at you. We don't care about you. You're just a nuisance on the way to us doing what we need to do without you to win. Now you're going to be chasing us constantly, running around sniffing like women do, but we should treat you with contempt, like an errant wandering whore. Well, that's what it is, right?
Well, this is the thing. At the moment, although it is true that the tides are turning as far as voting blocks are concerned. The Conservatives in Britain, Trump in America. It's still a minority move, because the actual Conservatives in Britain are centre left at best, most of the time centre left, and Trump is a singular individual who has even Republicans against him, and they are now, the Democrats are tripping over themselves trying to somehow impeach him. So he isn't exactly, he has a singular position of power, but the collective power.
Did you see Joseph's face? I'm not sure if you caught up with the little debate between Joseph and I. Did you see his face when I said, no, we hold Trump to a high standard of not being in the nationalist best interest because of his allegiances with Israel. Trump is not going to be immune from us. We are coming for Trump.
There you go. And yes, and even Trump has to pander to those various interest groups.
But he has to pander
How are you doing, everyone?
Evening soldier.
Hey, Street.
Hey.
What's up, sir?
I do. I wish people would stop using StreamYard and just use fucking Google Meets. I can never get it working. I have to do about 3 times.
But dude, I have to pay for Google Meets. This is free. I'm a cheap ass.
you cheap bastard.
I know. I gotta pay like £4.50 a month.
Yeah, you're fucking Jew. Are you sure you're not Jewish?
I don't know, man. I don't know. The nose says something.
I'm beginning to think of it.
The nose.
I'm beginning to think anyone on StreamYard are Jewish because they can't afford fucking £10 a month.
It's free, and yeah, you're right though. You're right. It's so much better to use Google Meets. I think I'm gonna subscribe. It's just I don't run enough streams, dude. I run a stream once a week at best. I pay for fucking Google Meets for one stream a week. I don't know. Maybe it'll encourage me to run more streams if I actually did it.
These immigrant libertarians who come here don't contribute to the cultural
Yeah, I know what
fabric.
it is.
Use StreamYard.
Yeah, what he's doing is sending all his money abroad and fucking up our economy.
That's what it is, man. All my money's in Jersey right now.
Yeah. Feeding all the cows over there.
all £12.50 of it.
Feeding all the Jersey cows instead of English cows.
That's what it is.
But actually, mate, I don't know if you caught up, but I think 2020 will be interesting in the corner as PA and the rest of us start planting our flags, because I think the Israel question will be interesting. I rate Joseph one of the top 3 debaters, hands down. So it'll be interesting to see how he defends liberalism, because once he gets all his monarchy arguments and calms down, he's going to be one of the strongest proponents, I would say, of liberalism.
Yeah, and also, I have a lot of sort of, if you like, information that has been sent over to me about the sort of JQ sort of situation, and the fact that they are much more encouraged to have Europe become a minority, or Europeans become a minority within Europe, because as long as that is the case, and Europeans are embroiled with a vast amount of sort of non-natives, if you like, then the chances of any scenario such as the Holocaust again is going to be 0 to none. And I don't know why, but I got this impression that they still fear such a scenario, that one day the Europeans will do what what happened in the 1940s
Of
and
course, they do, but they
1930s.
hedge. But even across the diaspora, especially in the Anglosphere, they hedge themselves politically on the left and right, everywhere. They're on the left-hand side and the right-hand side in a self-preservation. Why would you blame them for that? I think that's incorrect to blame them. What you should say instead is the national interest requires desystemizing from the outgroups.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I
they're
think
not
what
special. They're not special. They're no different from the richest man in England being Indian.
I
I
see.
think
Yeah.
the Muslims I
Welcome to
hear,
Peace too, Banksy.
for example, the Muslims I hear speaking in the park, they know about all of this. And why are they having these double standards, aligning with the left, right? Because it serves them. It serves them. They can build up their power level due to them. But I tell them our task is convince them, not being this arrogant and thinking that the left has no power. They letting them have this power, right, at the moment. And these people in power that they are fighting against, right? They know about all of this. They're criticizing America all the time, the most powerful nations bombing our countries. Do you really think that the most powerful empire, the most powerful military, the people that are in power now, and they know it, are the same people that kill millions of people in the Holodomor and all this other shit. These Satanists that kills babies, right, and drink their blood and all this stuff. You think that these people won't go against you at some point? So we have to convince them. And if we go in power and they see us as a threat to them, and seeing our power level, they will be more willing to listen to us and hear what we can offer them. We offer them not interventionism and all this stuff, right? The left won't offer them anything at the end, and this is what they have to understand, and then we can ally. And this is what the left fears the most at the moment. And there are already many migrants that ally with us. They understand the concept of the 14 words, and they know these cultural Marxists are not interested in any of their
Yeah.
culture or something. They know less than we are of them, and all these migrants knows that. All these, they
But
hate identity.
you raise an interesting point because I'm going to be using the next weeks or two, especially allying and from the nationalist movement, offer an olive branch to the senior leaders of the Muslim community in showing how this liberalism and intolerance and crazy accusations, these are part of the liberal, because fundamentally these are tax-paying, conservative, ordinary Muslims. We're going to take this little liberal house of cards and tear it down, right? I mean, how dare they be harassed by like the Steves and the Rogers and stuff, right? Because under their own liberal system, they should be included. We're going to take these fault lines and gripe at them to the core. As we explained now, conservative traditionalism and 14 for all. 14 for all is what sells. 14 for all is templatized. Good Lord, the Dalai Lama would wear a 14 for all t-shirt if I got hold of them. Yeah, it's 14 for all. Right? The message is winning. The left are going to be spiteful mutants and try to sabotage us. But we should not waste any energy on them. All our energy should be on the right. Yeah, that's my view.
Yes, and let me, because I couldn't address it as Lister was on, my take on this Watergate. As I have how I remembered it was Lister, Ralph, and this Christian guy who what is his name again?
Brother Bob.
Yes, Bob, a very intelligent
Bob the
man,
Builder.
by the way. He was having a debate with Ralph exclusively. And then what Lister has done, because the conversation was so good, he tries to interrupt. He was clapping Ralph on the shoulder and tried to go into the speech. And then what Ralph did, I wouldn't do that, but have done it, but he does it in a funny way, right? just go away, Lister. We are having the talk here. He was not even. It was funny. It was not aggressive or anything. But what Lister has done then is finding, searching for this bottle, stealing it from Bob, right? Searching in anger, and then angry reattack. So
Elron,
it
let me
was
tell
See,
you,
completely
I've got a
other
suggestion,
situation.
right? I've
Elron,
got a suggestion to put this to bed, and I don't know if obviously Mark's listening, so he can listen to this. What I think we should do is this, right? Just to put this to bed, because he's getting too much promotion, too much bullshit, and he never changes his story. So I reckon this, right? We take a neutral channel. It could be on this one. It could be wherever, but it has to be a neutral channel. And we need to do this. We need to look at the facts about what's gone on and all this stuff. And Lister doesn't like it when it's staged. So if he says, right, I'm going to bring you on the show, blah blah blah, at this time and this time, and you go, oh well, I'm busy for a couple of months. What I think we should do is we have a one-to-one Ralph and Lister, and it's going to be properly moderated where you get allocated
sorry
time.
to interrupt you there, mate, but that's not possible anymore because currently it's a hate crime. The police have been around,
Oh shit!
investigated.
All right then,
No, I can't. No. I love the way you're thinking, but it's already been fine. The police are pursuing the hate crime lawyers, affiliating with him, talk to his employers. His employers did this while he brags on video under employment time. He's been harassing me. I mean, it's pure. It's been categorized by all things as hate crime. So right now, that would just be the law course for him.
Okay.
Yeah. So once you get a hate crime order, which is false classified, his social media.
Okay, then we'll do it a different way.
No, literally, his social media impacts because no social media firm is going to talk someone with a hate crime conviction. So at this point,
Okay, we'll do it a different way then, right?
But I like the way. No, what we're going to do is we should just own the meta narrative. We just have to paint him for what it is. Review the Nick show, review the other show, review all Ricky's content, and just paint him what he is.
But he always comes over. Yeah, but he always comes over with the, oh, I wasn't given a fair chance, and this is taken out of context. So I'll tell you what, we'll do it this way. We'll get Phil, the man that he says he blames for this. We'll get Phil, right, which I'm sure he'll do it. He gets to answer these questions properly in a proper moderated way, where Phil we can play the clips of him saying he agrees with necrophilia and give Lister 4 minutes only to review his answer and whether it changes, and then we can put all this to bed, because all this, oh well, Phil said this, and now it's really getting boring now. And he seems to be getting a lot of platform for a little much more of, oh well, this isn't right. Oh, I didn't believe in necrophilia really. It was Phil's fault for asking me the question. No, we need to put this to bed. So we need to have, like, necrophilia. This is the question Phil asked. This is your response. And take back to him. Right, you've got 4 minutes to explain yourself. Next one, and next one, and next one. Just put it to bed. We need to do it.
But anyway, also, I'm pursuing a restraining order as well as part of this. After spoken to the police and everything else, he won't be able to come 300 feet near me, including speakers, corner, any demonstration. He's going to be removed from physical, and then we'll look at the sports show. And because he brags about this on a delivery style, and then violates and attacks an Asian man as a hate crime for delivery, the full force of the law is going to be applied on such people, right? Because this is what they did. It is a hate crime. It is currently in the systemic process as a hate crime, and our lawyers and everyone else are taking care of it. It's just that. Because that's exactly what happens, right? So documented video evidence of his entire character behavior, pursuing me, harassment, doxing my wife, aggressively the guy before, running around ignoring police orders, and, constant racial, just the entire affair is a hate crime like no other. And the full weight, and I was very clear to the police. The police are treating it exactly as it should be treated. That's what Sadiq Khan wants, right? No attacking elderly Asian men. Pursuing them, harassing them. It's a pure hate crime for every single metric. If you like, later on, when it's all settled, we will have a review of the entire legal documentation. How dare you? I mean, we live in a liberal country. How dare you attack someone for some political fantasy you have in your head? Are you mad? I mean, that was hate crimes have a very different processing through the system for obvious reasons. They're run by the establishment. So,
It's true.
Look, I actually listened
and you know
what
what?
my
Everyone, you're German, you don't understand. Once you get a hate crime classification, it shows up on your credit like a criminal report with no conviction. So when a criminal check is now done, that is a mandatory show up by legislation. So every time anyone runs an employment check on him, he's coming up with a hate crime. Right.
yes,
Yeah.
but
Elderly
the
Asian men should be looked after in an inclusive liberal democracy, right?
I think
the
elderly Indian gentlemen should always be, regarded as fragile individuals.
Not fragile.
Yeah.
They're
I feel very bad for my English brothers here. They are way ahead of even Germany on this whole hate crime shit. But it's coming here too.
Oh, it's very, very
I
mature in the UK. I know about Germany too. In the UK, it's very mature. We take the liberal left, the progressive left, to taking this very seriously. The government
Yeah.
is forced to act, for example. Right? There's no option. The entire machine must be brought down, and the employment classifications, everything like it's a full on. It's the machine, the full state of the machine. Right? How dare Deliveroo on a Deliveroo shift attack an Asian man after having stopped? And this is just, I mean, the Deliveroo are going to have, they're wide open for liability, given he said his company endorses this behavior. And we have audio, video, the lawyers have of him say, my company knows what I do and endorses it. It's shocking behavior. How can a blue chip company practice it? This is wide open. I talked to my mate at lunch. I met her around the office today. His HSBC boss was done for something, and HSBC are scrambling to defend themselves. You know, how dare, I mean, this is absurd. We live in London, right? It should be safety is paramount.
HSBC. What's HSBC got to do with that?
Oh, one of my partners is our clients and banks and stuff.
Oh, I see. I see.
Yeah, but the point is so interesting. So, deliver this is ridiculous. So, I mean, it's got to end, isn't it? And they threaten to blackmail me and ruin me, audio, video evidence. So, what's he hiding? It's just ridiculous. I thought we lived in a liberal democracy, right? Banksy, your camp.
I mean, that's what I'm trying to get back to. I'm trying to claw it back to that liberal democracy. I think I like that liberal democracy place.
Thank you for your support, Banksy.
Yeah. Hey, I do not. I neither condemn nor condone opinions expressed on this show.
You sound like Ralph and all about
List is still going on this whole thing in the chat. So before he leaves, he said he will leave soon. Should we rewatch the stream I have with him? Is someone interested in re-listening to this?
What, has he been on here today, has he?
Yeah,
he was here earlier on. Yeah, he was on the stream.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He he wanted to have his piece said. I'll be very shocked if he feels that this was a unfair. He didn't get a chance to say what he needed to say.
Not as shocked as I would be if YouTube and Twitter continued to allow a person with a hate crime to ever have a social media account on their platform.
Yeah.
You would think.
Especially an official one, according to this national policy.
Right.
So we should have this still while he has a social media career, right?
Right. I was
limited,
I was commenting on the unwatched stream from yesterday, and he told me, the social media is against me. I got deleted, and then I asked him, okay, let's have a debate on this topic alone. Who on which side the social media is on, and who are they deleting in an astronomical scale, right? He hasn't answered back.
No, but
He
when I tell you what, with the police interview and stuff, I was very clear. There's a man who's had a year or two career of going up to controversial figures, provoking on-street violence, being involved in it, running away, and the pattern seems to be escalating. And I feel very, very concerned and traumatized with these threats to me and my family. We can't have such people being allowed to propagate such hate in our society. We have to hashtag resist hate. So hate, I mean, I was very clear with our statements. There's going to be a follow-up interview with a particular special person at the police station. Because I feel this is an ongoing threat.
You should
He's been
contact.
bragging about it. He's been bragging about it afterwards. The lawyers have now recorded everything. He's been bragging about it, and doing this all on corporate time.
You should contact what's it called, Hope Not Hate, or these groups where
yeah, we
they
have all
protect
these
elderly Asian men.
we have all these organizations
You don't
looking
need to when you have
into.
lawyers on your side, right? Why would you need?
Well, there is that as well. But I'm sure BuzzFeed would like to write an article about how a vicious white man attacked an elderly Indian in Speaker's Corner.
while on while working for a company that employs lots of Asian drivers.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Deliveroo has a large Asian workforce. I mean, this is absurd. Which side are Deliveroo on?
Yeah, what kind of diversity are they promoting?
That's precisely why we have an HR interview coming up shortly with their HR department.
Oh, you got an interview coming up with the HR department of Deliveroo?
Well, it's already the hate
Holy
is already
shit.
been filed. We're tracing up with evidence, right? Because this attack was done bragged about on conference. That means they're wide open for liability.
Wow.
Right? Unless they don't have that employee. I mean, how dare they do that? I mean, that's diverse. Elderly Asian men are not meant to be attacked by young, virile white guys because they hate them. They have a passive hate.
Absolutely.
Hate is going to be stamped out, right? I think everyone here agrees we're anti-hate, right?
We do definitely
Good.
want to stamp out the hatred in our society.
Thank you for your support, Banksy.
Of course, I'm always
all this
concerned.
hate crime shit. I don't know what's the definition. I think no one has come up with the definition of hate crime.
What do you mean? It's a complete, a strong definition in the United Kingdom on the law. It's 3 different layers, my lawyers tell me.
Yeah, but here in
codified
Germany,
written.
so what I guess got from it is hate crime is defined in the UK as physical attacks, but
No.
here in Germany, hate
No,
crime
not
is
physical. No, physical, verbal, psychological, even without first-party complaints. Even a third party can corroborate it. So anything against what's called a protected class. I mean, Lister told me to go back to my own country.
Oh wow.
yeah.
That's just like, while working for his corporation.
So they
Thanks,
put
Brian.
everything in one pot. Physical attacks are on the same scale as words.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is just typical for the left. So, but we have to understand why they're calling it and what hate is. They trying.
You don't understand. I'm nervous as he got all his Antifa people, these goons. He's promoting this violent near-terrorist organization. I'm nervous when I open my door. I don't know what's going to happen. So this needs to be dealt with by the authorities.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. We should have a own website to gather all the information on hate crimes against whites and against from all these different sites. Just like they have this Hope Not Hate. Here in Germany, we have this Amadeo Antonius Stiftung, which gets state funded with millions of euros, and we have had nothing. So
you know what? I'm very lucky, unlike you guys in Deutschland and Heimat. I have the entire force of the United Kingdom government that has very strict support and protection. Right? We are, after all, a strong liberal democracy. Remember, thanks everyone.
Yes.
Protected class aggression and protected class crimes take a different route straight away. So the
Yeah,
economy is
right.
very clear about it. So
And the panel.
this is a top priority.
And the panel, what do you think about a project like this, gathering information and all the viewers can contribute to that? Search for, I don't know, Twitter posts, Facebook posts, and all this stuff, videos of hate crimes against whites and white identity. to have a website on this. I think this could be the next big project, just as we were never asked. I think this is a brilliant idea, don't you think?
Very interesting. Sorry, could you repeat what was it exactly that you were saying? Because I don't know if I got everything.
Have a website. When you hear the word hate, at least in Germany, it is like this. They say hate, and then they say right at the next sentence. The right.
I see.
And
Hate white.
racist. Yeah, exactly as racist. If you hear racist, you imagine even us, the normal people, of course, but even us, if you hear racist, we think about it as white, because in every article the mainstream media publishes, they do this shit. They meme hate, and then say in the next sentence, a white guy was harassing blah 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 blah. But if you look at social media, and you look into what colored people have to say, the left has to say, they are attacking us non-stop, and there's not one website that gathers all the stuff that's out there to have a contra narrative. So if you want to be against hate, which just means for me shutting down free speech, hate crimes is another word for shutting down free speech. Anti-hate speech is pro-free speech, in my opinion. So, but to have an to make our point is that we counter the narrative that hate is only coming from us, from our side, right? So we have to have a website and then promote it, just as well as the We Were Never Asked project. And I think even the AFD and other people would be on board with that. They are harassed with hate. They are the media attacks them that they are hateful all the time. So I think even the political parties, if we do it, we can have it in different languages. The main language would be in English, and then we also have a site where you can find all the hate crimes against Germans in German language, German videos where Germans getting attacked and all this stuff, right? So I want to have this website, right? For us, that everyone can go to if we speak about hate crimes, and then you have all this information gathered, right? This would be a great, in my opinion, a great project, and everyone can contribute to that. We have then, let's say, 10 to 20 peoples that you can send your screenshots, the videos you find. Most videos are already deleted by YouTube, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But they can send us the links. We fact check them if it's true, right? And then we just implement them on our website.
Oh, I see. I see. So, so they can you people. It can be like a repository of all the places where they are trying to conflate white and racism, white and hate, and all of these things.
Where they are racist towards whites.
So you could say, did you guys ever hear about that chap on the Question Time program? Lawrence. Oh man, what was his name? The actor.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, the actor, he was pretty good.
Yeah. Now, would you say that moment when the woman said, "Oh well, you wouldn't understand racism because you're a privileged white man," would that, and he actually acknowledged, he said, "This is an immutable characteristics. I can't help this. So you saying this just makes you racist." Now, would that be a point in which racism against whites was kind of demonstrated, if you like, where just because you're white, you can't possibly understand some things?
Yeah. See, I've said the same thing before, where people go, when I've been talking to 90 and them idiots, and they says, "Oh yeah, but you don't understand because you can't talk for black people because you don't know." I said, "Well, I'm white. How are you talking for me?"
Yeah, but what I mean is, it's not just that. How about if I said to a black person, a Bangladeshi, Pakistani person. Oh, I'm sorry. This application, I don't know, is Windows Word. Yeah, you're not gonna understand this because you're brown or you're black.
Yeah.
How is that going to go down? I
Yes.
wonder. I'm sorry, you can't use Microsoft Office because you're brown.
Reverse psychology is the best form to root out bullshit problems. Because if you use it against them in the exactly same way, they go, no, but it's not like that, though, because you've always got the upper hand, because the white man's always... No, I'm using the same logic that you're saying. If you're saying that I don't understand what racism is because I'm not black, do you understand white racism?
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, yeah, there isn't a thing is that, isn't there? So I explained to them the differences that I've experienced. I said, "You going to deny that now?"
Sorry,
And I
guys,
said,
I'm
"So if
back.
you're saying I don't understand your plight because I'm not black, well then you don't understand my plight as a white person neither." So, but they seem to hate that,
Of course.
This is the
Of
funny
course they
thing
hate
is
and
it.
they
though,
say, "Oh well, it's to do with." They say it's to do with.
systemic racism.
A white person can't be white because
I
it can't be white. Can't be
I would
racist
even
because
embrace it. Yes,
No,
we
I,
can't
Banksy,
understand you black guys. We can't
Banksy,
understand you Muslims.
yeah,
Yes,
Banksy.
and the left can also not understand you.
yeah.
They are racist, really, right? I would embrace that. They're secret Nazis, right?
But
I
Banksy,
would embrace that fucking thing.
Go ahead,
Banksy,
Ralph.
I actually feel I am the textbook of institutionalized racism. This harassment has been on social media, it's been supported by the organization, the company.
Yeah,
We need to stamp this out because I think this is what we need to fight
I think you have been, you have been a victim of what do they call?
Of racial abuse.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it's the systemic systems
It's
of
been institutionalized.
institutional systems.
No, but literally, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, it's all been used systemically in a campaign, right? So we can see how
He's
this
using his
works.
white
Privilege.
advantage to harass an Asian man, an
I'm so
Indian
lucky
man.
that my brother Bob
That's what
was
he's
there.
been using.
Yeah.
And,
I think, Ralph, you have to acknowledge that you are a victim of the systemic systems of structural institutions.
I think the departments have been
Because
contacted and will be contacted.
Let's go with liberalism is really white supremacy. Did you watch this movie? What was it called? Where the blacks got hypnotized by this white crowd there. I think it was a Netflix film. Get Out,
Fuck
I
Netflix.
think.
oh, Get
Get
Out!
Out
Yeah,
was
yeah,
a
yeah,
good
that
movie.
movie where
Yeah.
the white people take over black people's bodies.
Yes. And they, they put the narrative in that if you invite black people, what they really do, these white people, is having another form of slavery. And I hear blacks talking about this. Yeah, this is really true. They're using us because they have not the workforce now, and they're using us as slaves, as modern day slaves now. They want us to come here to do the work for us, for them, and they're the secret Nazis. Let's go with that, right? Let's go with that.
That's
Is it true that they say if someone holds the power? So what is the definition of the way they use this racism? A white person can't be racist because they've got what is it? Because what the hell do they use?
Privilege plus power, streets.
Privilege
Yeah.
versus power. So we're so a black person can't be racist to a white person because the white person has got this white power or white something.
No, you got prejudice and power as a white person,
Yeah.
so you can then be racist. Whilst a black person
So if,
doesn't have power, so they can still be prejudiced,
okay, so
but they don't have power.
okay, power then. Okay, power. Let's look at the power then. So if a person is an authority over a white person, let's say a doctor, he's got more power, would you say, than someone that works in the factory? In the sense that he's more.
Well, no. You see,
He's further
the
up the
thing is, see,
scale,
they don't
no?
look at it like this. They don't look at it like. By the way, I can argue this, but I reject all of it. They don't look at it in the sense of a guy who works at the coal, I don't know, biscuit factory.
Yeah.
A white guy working at a biscuit factory has less power, socially than a black Nigerian, neurosurgeon. They look at it
Right.
as the white guy working at the biscuit factory. Although he's a guy who works at a biscuit factory packing biscuits, and his entire life he has almost zero political and social power, he still is white, and thus the white system which surrounds him protects him somehow and gives him some sort of privilege that neurosurgeon who has politicians and royals for friends doesn't get that same power, because that guy clearly is a minority. He's out of the loop. The white system will always exclude him, even though in actual real terms, in reality, that neurosurgeon has far more political power than that biscuit packer.
Okay,
Yeah,
then
or they say
let's look
this
at power
powerful.
this way then.
Let me
So
make
if I
this
go
point.
to a school,
Oh, okay.
if I go to a school where there's only 3 white people in the school, would you say then that the ethnic minorities have more power over me?
If you go to a school that has, sorry, what?
So if I went to a school when I was younger, right,
Sure.
and there was 3 white people in the school, the whole school,
Okay.
would you say then they had power over me?
Well, in real terms, yes, but in a social justice intersectionalist frame of the aspects and these sort of lefty fucking university guys, technically you 3 white guys have more control or more power over the institution of that school than all of those other brown and black people that dominate that entire school. Even though you're the minority in that environment, institutionally, that institution of the school system, or the education system, if you like, caters to you apparently more than it does to those brown and black people, because institutionally it's still a white nation. So the political powers are still white, but you 3 are going to get your ass handed to you by all those white, brown and black guys, because there's only 3 of you white dudes in that fucking school.
Banksy, the nationalist movement looks at that also correctly identified as legacy, heritage, and what was given to you from your forefathers.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. Technically, this is your country. You're supposed to have more influence and power in your own country. But from the intersectional perspective, you're still racist, even though it's the black and brown kids that are putting the boot in you every day, bullying the shit out of you, but you're the racist fucking supremacist in that school. So ignore the boots.
I think Richard Spencer has brought that up many times, and he made a brilliant point, in my opinion. Let me try to remember. He said, yes, he would agree that the white people are mostly still in power in our countries, as it's supposed to be, right? The system is, however, anti-white. The people in power are anti-white. So this whole narrative of these intersectional lunatics collapses, right? But he also made another point, and this is... so you live in a liberalist, almost, or also libertarian society, which is a white concept. It is only whites that can think in this way, who are thinking about themselves as individuals. So in one point, the left is right, but they won't address this. Liberalism is a white supremacist system, right? Because it's fundamentally white. Only white people think of themselves, or have the capability of thinking of themselves as this individual groups who lose themselves in this mindset that everyone is equal. uh, blacks really don't think that way. They see themselves as a group. They're not thinking about themselves as individuals. Look at the fucking libertarian conferences. It's 98% white or something, and then you have some East Asians in it, right? But it's fundamentally white. They're right about that, but they won't address that because the liberals think of themselves as not as a white system, but a system that empowers the black peoples and all this stuff. But they don't, and but these people that are coming in don't embrace this liberal mindset. They just using them, right?
Well,
So I don't know if I make the point clear. I can maybe research this Richard Spencer, but he put it really to the point, and I think it was a great attack on the left because this liberal mindset he was talking about is fundamentally a white concept. How we structure the society right now is a white mindset, a white
yeah.
it's part of the white soul, as you, yeah.
Yeah, no, look, I agree with you. I agree with you in what you're saying. Um, I think that the reason these white sort of liberals, etc., are able to do what they do. I don't know if you can see the image that I'm sharing, but that to me is the core of this. Is that from my perspective, it's because these countries who are fundamentally liberal, they have become too comfortable. The liberals can only grow out of the seeds that are planted by hard times and hard work and hard living and grafting. And I think that is where we are in the Western civilization. We are at that peak or that place in which these people have been way too comfortable and way too soft for way too long. This is where my entire premise of this whole stream about weak men of West has come from. Comfort and safety has unfortunately taken away it's I think it's evolution, even to some extent. It's social evolution, where softness and cushiness and comfort and knowing where your next meal is coming from and knowing where you're going to put your head down and in a nice warm soft pillow is going to create people who are not going to, when you're out in the field, when you're grafting and you're trying to hunt down your next meal, you don't have time to worry about
Yes.
prejudice plus power equals racism.
You don't have time to talk about transgender toys.
Yeah,
right?
you don't have time to worry about gender pronouns, okay?
Yeah.
Because you're trying to fucking skin a squirrel for your next meal.
Exactly, exactly,
So when you're fat and comfortable and life is good, and it truly is good in the West. And as I said, I keep saying this because I know, I remember, I see those people in the world who are suffering. I mean, a few nights back we were talking about, I don't know exactly where, about different parts of the world. A few other people were from, like, they've been to Brazil and a few other countries around the world. You can see real poverty. Once you've witnessed real suffering and poverty around the world, then you recognize how incredibly good you have it. The poorest person in this country lives better than some of the richest people around the world. Some of the richest people in various countries in the world, in incredibly poor countries in the world. So no, this is nonsense. These liberal ideas are just come out of hardship and graft.
You're exactly right, and
They also don't come out. Hang on, they also don't come out of magic soil theory. And
Yeah.
I replace with migration the idea that they may one's not making the claim that they may never or cannot. One's making the claim that even if they did, a lot of them take a lot of time. This mad rush towards this gift by those who are not ready to receive it is conflict, and that's what's happened, right? That's why you're seeing this rise, right? That's why you're seeing the swing. because it's a rejection of this idea, right? But this is the global tail end of globalism, right? Once we get, Banksy, you get this quicker than most, right? Once in the 80s we had business, 70s business computers, 80s personal, 90s we networked them, 2000 we socialized them like comms, and then
Yeah.
we painted this. We first started moving data, then money became data in the 70s and 60s, and then we moved goods, and then we moved to people. People are
Yes.
goods.
People
People are
are
not goods.
commodities,
No, but people are not. That's the problem.
but they're not. But they're used as such nowadays.
No, but that's the globalism, right? That's my global homo, and that's the problem because nationalism is a reaction against it, saying, hang on, it's one thing to get shoes made in China, it's another thing to get a Chinaman. A
Yes.
Chinese man is not a shoes made in China, right? So as soon as that happened, everything was on. But then you realize instinctively there's an in group and an out group, and then 14 is natural because it's the reaction that says, hey, this is our stuff and that's your stuff, right? So the enemy really is the global cathedral. Number one, it's not even the left. The left are just also pawns the global cathedral. Right? It's globalism. That's the beast. Right?
Yeah.
And Lister implicitly agrees with us. I think that yesterday he made the point that, to some degree, he's right there. He agreed that on Unwashed that, or he was telling Unwashed. Now the right wing is only rising because the working class is not. Having more money according to the productivity, right? And they feel it now, and this is why they vote left. It's in part it's true, and he fears it. This is why he wants to
The mistakes
tax
we
the
made.
rich now, the very rich, to make it more comfortable again. So white people won't rise up, right? He wants to
short
make
answer-
it again
I get it.
comfortable for whitey.
And the short answer to that is really more GDP, and you can see this in the EU electoral results. More GDP is below more ethnicity. Right, so even with the GDP being a secondary concern, people go, right, well, I don't care. I mean, we saw that in the Brexit election, right? They didn't care that there'd be a hit. They still picked leave, right? And this is a much deeper, wider sentiment. Right? They're saying, I don't care. I don't want one more Pakistani cab driver.
Well, this is the thing. It eventually comes down to the point as you can only promise people great GDP of this or that for so long. Eventually, they'll look around and go, you know what? I may have a little bit of a better job now than I did 10 years ago, or I may have a little bit of a cushier life, but I don't recognize the country I'm living in. This is not my country anymore. So you have to come to the realization: do you want to have your country, or do you want to have an extra 20 quid in your pay packet?
But Banky, it's not even that. It's you're on the money. Absolutely. It's what is the financial cost of cultural integration. The integration is always cultural, right? The question is, what's the cost? Was that a nice interaction, a bad interaction, a painful one, a good one? And money is just like a metric in that, right? But if you look at it, the cultural cost seems to break down. I know we've got, grooming gangs, what have you, London Bridge, right? So the cost has already been felt to the extreme, and then people are noticing the cost is spreading, right? More languages in schools, more rest. And then look at the cost and going, the cost is not the thing that matters, it's the cultural transformation. And that's what we have on our side.
The teachers,
That's what Lister, for example, cannot face. Because when he faces it, he can't argue it. Right?
and there are no
against the will of
statistics
the
about
right?
that. The social
Tons of-
cost.
If you want data, you've got the right man. Tons of data, yeah.
Yeah. I hear more and more even teachers that have to fear for their jobs are speaking out now. They are telling we can't teach them anything because we have all these cultures clashing together in this classroom, and parents that are not teaching their kids to do their homework, to have their books with them, and all this
I can
shit.
tell you, Elron,
Yes.
straight to your face, just me now as a victim of a hate crime, just the speed and the speed at which the government machine has responded to me and my people.
Seriously?
Of
Wow,
course.
that's
It's a hate
unbelievable.
It's a hate crime.
But yeah, I mean, you're right.
They've sped up this entire organization around this, right? It's socialized, right? It's been put in, right? And the same in the education system, same in the criminal justice system. No, that's same in the law immediately, right? That the law marches the institutions, you can feel it when you need to use it, right? When it's there for you, you feel it, right? And when it goes against you, like 30, 400 languages spoken in London, then you really feel it on the bus, right? You don't understand what people are saying. It's just noise, right? It's just Chinese people
Well,
talking, right?
this is the thing. I mean, like Lister, I think he was on Wash last night, and I tried to catch some of it, but I got bored and I left after a bit. The amount of things that I caught about the fact that the ever changing face of London and Birmingham, and Lister was like, no, it's great, everything's fine, dude. I can promise you, you walk down any street. I was in London a couple of days back, just walking down Oxford Street. Had a few things I needed to do, and it's just like, if you want to stop and ask anyone for directions. Now, I had my phone, so I was actually following my map, but I thought to myself, if I didn't have this device and I had to ask someone for directions, I couldn't find one English-speaking person out of the 100 around me. It was literally, I was like, if I want to ask any of these people for directions, I don't think any of these people speak English.
But also, when they do, and they do it in such a varying degree, it ultimately, instantly, if you imagine each of these things, you're technical, Banksy, imagine each of these things as a transaction. If all these transactions are going on, interaction, talking, speaking, looking, and you look at that interaction as transactions, then you look at those transaction costs and go, gosh, even when they do speak English, it's different, it has a different transaction cost. As language is so important, it changes the way you are with them, right?
Well, it changes the way you interact with everyone around you. And London, I'll be honest, it has millions of people, and it's one of the loneliest places in this in the country.
You know why that is, actually? Because it is the ultimate peak of the liberal promise of absolute individualism and freedom, and with that therefore comes the ultimate detachment from any social fabric. Unlike a marketplace in Iran or a marketplace in Beijing, which would be tightly cohesive.
Not even that.
It's the opposite. It's pure isolation. Right? Everyone is free to.
It's not even that. I can go 100 miles north. I can go 50 miles south, or 100 miles west in village. That was in Cornwall last year. A wonderful sort of place. Extremely English. Don't get me wrong. It's like the whitest place I've ever seen. But people are friendly. People walk up to you. Hello, good morning. There's like conversation going on. There are people interacting. I felt safer in Cornwall than I have ever done in London. As a friggin' Caucasian, brown, semi-tanned, creamy beige individual, I've never felt safer in Cornwall.
You didn't mention your body weight, but that's
yes, a rotund brown man.
but literally, it's literally the cohesion can be felt as a transaction fabric. Right? All those transactions had lower costs, right? Were ultimately within some sort of mesh, right? It wasn't an isolated walk through some hood in Peckham.
Exactly.
Yeah, there was not that feeling of sheer freedom of isolation, which is fundamentally the endpoint intellectually in the failures of liberalism. As Nietzsche said, the Legion the Legion of nothingness.
Yeah.
Everything is nothing, right? Everything is nothing, right? Nothing.
I mean, it's so
anywhere, right?
blatantly obvious. Everywhere where you have a white majority, it's peaceful. The murder rates are in this diversity. Diversity is our strength. Is astronomically higher. But maybe they admit it to some point then. But you know what they're coming up with then? It's because they are not as wealthy as these white people in this area, right? So they always getting trying to deconstruct the obvious, deconstruct reality, right?
Sorry,
hold on.
Just gonna bounce into it, right? That's some work shit.
No problem.
And you can only understand guys like Lister if you look at it from an anti-white perspective. This is important to understand.
Well,
all these double standards and all these debate tactics, you can only understand it, and it makes perfectly sense when you see it from an anti-white perspective. Then it all makes sense.
Yeah, the thing is, I wanted to make these two comments. The thing you mentioned about Richard Spencer and his ideas of America. You see, I consider America, Australia, South Africa, these, even Canada, somewhat apart from Europe. because these are colonial countries. You know what I mean? These are countries that have been colonized. Now, their demographic could shift potentially. Now, it could be to the detriment or to the benefit of those nations. To be honest with you, I personally think if the demographics of Canada and America shifts to becoming increasingly minority to, and once and I see this as an inevitable scenario at this point, once the American United States becomes a white minority nation, I fear that it is just going to spiral out of control and possibly, going to ruins, in my personal opinion.
Let me make an important point. I think no one's ever come up with this point. The situation in South Africa for whites are bad enough already, right? But what's holding the blacks in South Africa back is our power in America and all this stuff. They fear if they go full race war now mode, then there's a white awakening all around the world, and they are attacking them. This is the only thing that holds them back.
Yeah,
and
maybe
this is important.
Maybe that might be, but all I'm saying is that I do consider those as slightly special case to Europe in the sense of the colonial history. But with Europe, there is no, there's no doubt, there's no argument to be made that why should European natives not wish to have a native country of their own for their for the prosperity of their own people. Perhaps someone like me or Ralph or others will have a space in that, but we should accept we will always be the minority of this nation. We will always be the fringe. The majority will be the natives. That should be perfectly acceptable and perfectly clear as far as Europe is concerned. I wouldn't consider it any less of a Japanese that wants to have a country of majority Japanese people, or a Chinese, or a Korean, or even in the Middle East. And now I have to admit, I had this conversation with a friend of mine. I started thinking about Iran, about how is Iran a majority native of any Iranians? It isn't. This is the weird thing about the Middle East, or these countries who've had wars and conflicts for centuries and centuries. Iranians there is no majority ethnicity in Iran. There is a large minority groups, the Persians, and then there are other minority groups, Arabs, Kurds, Turks, Lurs, etc., etc. There are no majority ethnicity in Iran, and I suspect similar in Iraq. It is actually, I don't suspect it is the same in Iraq, and even in places like Afghanistan. They are not majority ethnically homogeneous. And at the same time, those countries, for the most part, are constantly being pulled at the edges by those minority groups. The Azeri Turks want a piece of their own country. The Kurds want to fracture off to their own bit of land. The Arabs, all the others, they are all fracturing Iran and Iraq. If you look at Iraq, as soon as the dictators are gone, those minority groups, they start pulling at the seams of those nations because they're not ethnically homogeneous. They don't have an ethnic unity in those nations. So all the groups, all the fractured groups, they want to take a piece for themselves. Everybody wants their own country. And so there is something to be said about being ethnically homogeneous in your own country. It does give you another level of unity, another degree of unity that you don't get when you're not ethnically homogeneous. And countries like Iran, like my own land, that I consider myself Iranian, but I know I'm not. I am ethnically not homogeneous with my own country. Even though I consider myself Iranian, I have no problem. I even consider myself socially or culturally British, because I have a lot more British habits than I do, or English habits than I do Iranian ones. But nevertheless, I can recognize these things. I'm just simply pointing out the realities of what we see around us. I'm not here to say this is better or that is worse. I'm just saying I can see it, and I'm not denying it. I'm not under some delusion of it. What I despise more than anything is people who want to bury their heads in the sand and pretend some things are not true. Lister wants to pretend that the British natives of this country somehow don't have a claim to this land. They do. They have an absolute claim, and they should rightfully, take their place in this country, and they should rightfully fight for their survival in this country. They shouldn't consider just them being phased out of their own country as an okay thing. The Germans, you yourself are German. Your politicians are saying it's okay if Germany isn't majority German anymore. That
Yes.
the different ethnicities will dominate you. Why would you do that? Why would you promote such a thing?
Our state-funded, it's a taxpayer-funded media. I think we have one of the biggest funded media. It's like 8 billion euros a year they get from the German taxpayers to promote anti-German propaganda, and they are under a lot of flack recently. And for example, they had a scandal. They are pushing all this Fridays for Future shit, right? So as far as the graffiti question, Lister was also talking about on Watch, all these guys from Extinction Rebellion and Fridays for Future smearing their graffitis on all the walls. They're getting invited by every mainstream media. They get praised for it, right? So then these media stations were having a song, a classical children's song. They reframed the song and are telling your grandma is a Umweltsau. She is the worst person in the world and all this stuff. So they are promoting an intergenerational warfare, the young against the old, just like they did with the Mao regime in China. They are doing it right now here in Germany. And this was the first big thing where everyone united, right? Even the people not on the right. And they, of course, tried to frame it as, this right-wing guys attacked us. Everyone that attacks us is AfD, are these Nazis. But it doesn't work. It hasn't worked. And they have... so this was 2 months ago, and they are not going back or rethinking of themselves and in what we should do better. They're enforcing it. So we have a week ago now, we had a 12 minutes documentary about our handball team. I don't know if you know. I think it's called handball in English.
Yeah. We got handball. Yeah.
Yes. So we have these football clubs. They are very diverse, but these handball groups are like 90% German, and then you have some Poles in there, Poles or Swedish people in there. So it's very wide, and they are making a 12 minutes documentary from our taxpayer money, from Germans paid, and saying, "Oh, these teams must be more diverse." They let me tell you, let me watch how they named the video. Wait, WDR, Handball. Okay, they call it handball in Germany. White and German is a problem now. This is how they put this video out there. So, and the dislike ratio is 473 likes and 4,921 dislikes. Right?
Clearly, the audience is telling them.
Yeah, and you look at the comment sections, normal people, really, because I see how they argument, and this is not our points. They're not getting it's anti-white, it's anti-German. So they're not using our rhetorical skills to counter their bullshit propaganda, right?
Yeah.
Most people are just normal people that have watched this. and they are fucking enraged, right? And there's now a big campaign here in Germany, not paying these taxes to fund these people, because this thing, if you look into the laws, it's illegal to. So they have an illegal system right here, but they're telling us it's illegal not to pay it. And then you have three different methods how Germans try to disrupt the system. For example, they pay only three euros instead of 17 euros 50. So they have more bureaucracy. They have to then put out letters. You have not paid enough. Please transfer the rest of the money, right? So it already has a big effect, and now they're putting this shit out there, right? Uh, it is just brilliant. The left is completely is going completely insane, and I hope they continue with all of this.
Yeah,
It just plays in our cards so well.
yeah. I mean, yeah, it's just I see it as I don't know. I just see this like social suicide. I just wanted to point out two things. Takia Watch sent me this about Pew Research. This was, I think, to counter Lister's some of Lister's points in regards to for the next 400 years, the Muslims couldn't possibly grow to the amount to be able to be of any sort of significant numbers in this country. I don't buy into that at all, and this is Pew Research. This is actually from the Pew Research Center, so this is like the gold standard of research. And Muslims make up 4.5% of Europe's population in 2016. Yeah, about 5%. And their projections are sort of pretty stark, let's put it that way. This is the numbers for now. Now, where is... yeah, I think they've got some projections here. I wish Takia Watch would actually jump on and explain this better himself, because he's actually a lot more astute in this particular situation. Takia, do you wanna jump on here and see it? Zoom in. We can't see. Oh Christ. Okay, hold on.
Yeah, I think we should have an in-depth video on all the numbers and statistics and all this shit. But
Exactly.
it's very tough to get all this numbers, fertility rate, and all this stuff, because most European countries, of course, they want they make it hard to find, right? Because it would play in our hands. But I know, for example, here in Germany, Muslims and especially Turks are having more kids now than 20 years ago. Why? Because they use this social welfare system to make this birth jihad. They understand how they gain power. And Erdogan even promotes that. He was talking about having, here in Germany, right? Here in Germany, he was telling the Turks here in Germany, have more kids. You are the future of Europe.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. It's unbelievable. And yeah, they are having the Turks are having more kids than 20 years ago. So it's total bullshit. Meanwhile, the Germans are having 1.3 kids, right?
Yeah.
So, and Lister even said it. I don't know. He probably can't read statistics and do math. What happens when a population only have 1.3 children? Are they growing in the future, or
I
are
know
they dying?
he completely ignores that. He completely ignores
And it
that.
is exponential, right? So now you have the baby boomers who are in the 50s, 60s or something, right?
Yeah.
So they are now dying out, and then you will see a complete millions of Europeans are not and are in the next decade washed away from the earth. So you will have a decrease in white population over the next decade by millions, And
Absolutely.
Lister must know about that. but he is just deflecting and
Oh yeah, yeah. I
all
mean,
this stuff. And look, for example, at the what the group of whites that can reproduce itself, how many kids are they having, and how many of them are there compared to 20 years ago. You will
yeah,
already see it in this category. If you look at the people that can reproduce themselves or are newborn, then you will see newborn Germans, for example, are already millions behind one, like in the 80s or something, right?
oh yeah,
There were much more newborn German babies or in the reproductive age than 20 years ago. So we already see it in that way. And the only thing, and I think even his statistic where he says we are still growing is wrong, but let's assume this is right. I haven't seen the evidence of that, but let's assume he's right. Over the next decade, you will see probably 50 million less whites than there are now.
Well, I mean, so when I say, I don't know whether saying the word white. I think the word white is the triggering part of it. I always say natives of that nation. Now, you can go ahead and determine how you would ascertain who is a native and who is not. But nevertheless, the natives of these European countries, I think I know what they are. I think most people know what they are. There are those in denial who don't want to admit who the natives are. But nevertheless, I still believe that absolutely the natives of these nations should remain
Yes.
the majority of this nation. And you know, Ralph, even he himself disputes the percentage. You could be happy with 80. You could be happy with 90. He wants 95%. I don't. I don't really. I don't think it should be less than 80. I think 80 is a line that they shouldn't let cross, because if they do, then it's gonna spiral, very rapidly. I personally think after 70-80%, things are just gonna exponentially grow if you don't put a hard line and a hard stop at around that sort of figure. But then again, you might get away with it at 60% for a number of years. I don't know for sure, but certainly Ralph is he's way up in the 90s. I myself, I'm worried now. I'm worried now. On the
Let
according to the last census of the United Kingdom in 2011 and the one that's going to come next year, I am worried
yeah,
right now. Right now, I say we should have panic stations. We should have serious conversations about immigration and child birth rates and policies according to those. But the thing is, in this country, for example, if you have a child policy, I mean, this is something that Ralph never really fully answers, I don't think, to me. Which is, if I have a policy of I want to increase birth rates of the white national or the national natives of Britain. Now, if I say, okay, I will, if you guys have anyone who has over 2 children or 3 children gets a certain tax discount or a certain child support maintenance, the Somalis and the Pakistanis and the Hindu and the Indians and the Sikhs and the
yeah,
Nigerians,
of
they're
course,
gonna
of course.
friggin' overrun all that. They already have 10 kids.
Yeah,
Right now, as we speak, they have 6 children. So if you're going to give tax breaks to people over 3 children, then the whites ain't going to compete. The natives are not going to compete on that score. You're going to be giving tax breaks to people who already have 6 kids, which are not going to be not native. So what you have to do is you have to give discriminatory tax breaks or advantages. You have to literally say this only applies to native British citizen or native English or native, British or
yeah,
United
yeah.
Kingdom citizens.
This policy, however, is way off. I would agree with you, but this policy is so much out of the Overton window. You can't, if you have a party, you can't
You ever get elected for it?
advertise for that. But for example, I would go with the policy from Orban. He has a policy where he said people that are married, one guy is working, and they are having kids, they get like 30,000 euros or something. And if they have another kid and another kid, if they have three children, this 30,000 will be granted to them. So you have one guy is working, and so he promotes a
Yep.
kind of I don't even want Germans. I'm a eugenic guy, just like Lister is. He wants to kill all these uh, people that have disabilities and all this
Oh,
stuff,
the
right?
yeah. Well, he was talking
Yeah,
about
yeah. So
children born with Down syndrome or
I'm
something.
for eugenics just as Lister, but I go a bit another way. I don't want the stupid Germans to have that don't have work, that can't
Yeah, to
work for
reproduce.
themselves, and yeah, to reproduce, right? I want the best. I want the middle class, the hardworking people have very many children, and our elites to have many children. I see. This is
Yeah,
my biggest problem with feminism is our most clever women are having less and less children because they study, they go to work, they can all
mm,
do all of this shit. If they want to work so badly, they can do it after they are 30. Let's have kids first, right? And then have your career if you still want it.
well, this is the reverse with feminism at the moment. They're having the kids first. They're having the work career first, and then trying to have kids later, which is
Yeah.
actually harder for them to do so. There's two things. First of all, we got Takia Watch on the panel. Welcome, Takia.
Greetings, greetings.
So
Hi.
I'd like to bring you in for this chart that I have in front of me. There's one other thing, oh my God, Eliodor. Someone sent me a text saying Spencer is basically a communist who cares nothing about the nation, and that no one in the U.S. gives a damn about Spencer, including the neo-Nazis. I don't know. I presume. I
Yeah,
presume that's the thing about.
I have some problems, especially as a European, with Spencer, but
Mm,
I hate this bashing. I think the whole thing with Spencer is because of the Nick Fuentes versus Spencer fight. It's the Groypers that attacks him, but he's one of our brightest minds in my in my
Well,
opinion. Still, he has done
Banksy, I would
important work.
advise you.
Okay. Sorry. Go ahead, Takia. Sorry, you've
Oh,
got a bit of echo going on there, but if you want to just delve into this chart, it's all yours. Do you want to share? Well, I suppose you don't want to share your screen, but just tell me where you want to click on, and I'll move around this.
Yeah, I'm not in a situation where I can actually talk right now. What I want to say is that this is a prognosis by Pew Research. It gives you three scenarios. One, if you have zero immigration. Second thing is if you have medium immigration, or you'll have high immigration that you, like the West has had the last, I guess, 30 years. So you see the different outcomes. And the mistake that Lister is doing, he's taking the whole Europe and saying that it will only grow this amount. But the mistake he's making is, if you look at the screen that you're sharing,
Yeah.
Eastern Europe is not going to have much difference in Muslim population, while Western Europe is going to have huge difference.
I
So he
see.
doesn't distinguish. So
Exactly, yeah.
this map shows you country by country. I have to leave right now, but look at it country by country. Right now, you look at middle,
I'm with
medium
you. So
immigration.
what Lister has done is he's taken all the countries and has then
Exactly.
aggregated the percentage to being like
That's a
1%.
huge mistake. You have to go by country by country. Look at your
I
country
see.
from 5% to 16%. This is in 30 years.
But then
What's
I
going to
don't
happen in the
think
next 30 years?
I don't think that's a mistake by Lister. I think Lister has found this scenario in order to create present a figure that is favorable to his perspective.
Exactly. Yes,
It's-
this
it's-
is what he's always done.
I actually
Brilliant
think-
point, Simon. By the
I
way.
actually think it's an honest mistake because he doesn't understand how to read statistics. Just show
That
the
could be,
people. Show the people first what it is today. Go to my country first, Sweden, and
yes.
show them how many percent they are.
Yeah. I mean,
And
well,
then you
now
go to
or
high
later?
immigration and medium immigration.
Sorry, are you talking at the top, the bottom? Whereabouts do you want me to go?
Look for 2016.
Ah,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is This is that projected figure of 2015.
No, you clicked on it. Go back.
Yeah, let me go
Don't,
back.
you clicked on it. Go back. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the 2016 figures.
And also,
Actually,
it's
no, that's
only
20.
talking about
Go to the top.
Muslims, right? It's in this counter-jihadist perspective. But we are not only talking about Muslims. We're talking about the Great Replacement, right? It's not
Yeah,
all
that's
about Muslims. I hear. I recently read. Don't put me on the exact number, but I think 60% of the Africans want to migrate to Europe. 60%. How many are there?
Wow.
There are billions of Africans there, right? So we are not talking only about Muslims.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think from your perspective, from Ralph's and that group, we're talking about an overall. So we're just taking into account the Muslim numbers with this one, I guess, Simon. Whilst if you're actually looking at it as a whole, Christian, Buddhists, Hindus, Sikhs, etc., then the actual population, if we're talking about, if you're a native Swedish person, if you're a native German, native English, then these numbers are just the Muslims alone, which is quite bad.
Yeah, but show it because there is an aim there to take over. But besides that, there's others as well. But show the numbers. Go to medium and high immigration.
Whereabouts?
Just to make sure it's.
So you're talking. Sorry, whereabouts? You guide me and I'll take it there.
So let me see. Are you on medium? Okay, this is now 2016, which is basically yesterday. If you go down, then now they will give you zero immigration, medium, and then high. So keep scrolling down. Okay, this is zero immigration if nothing happens.
This is if nothing happens. This is if nothing changes.
Go to medium and high immigration.
Wait a minute.
Scroll down.
Here. Is this the bar
No.
chart?
Same kind of picture. It will just say medium.
Same, ma'am.
Yeah,
So-
there you go, medium.
So this is
No,
the
this
medium.
is zero. This is zero.
Oh, this is zero
Go down.
migration. Oh, of course, yeah, zero migration.
down.
This
not
is the
gonna happen.
medium
Yeah.
migration scenario. That's 20% at medium.
Go now country by country. Zoom in.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Sweden.
Zoom in. Yeah, we're screwed.
Yeah, Sweden has got
This is why I'm making videos every day.
Sweden
Because
has
I
got
need to make sure that people know today
issues.
what they will know in a couple of years. Zoom in even more.
No, the problem is when I zoom in more, it gets messed up.
Okay.
Hold
Okay, I see.
on. There we go. Yeah, has it gone back?
Yeah, and what is
Yeah, here we go.
important here is also, List is always talking about this 1%, right?
Yeah, he's a moron.
And this 1% is highly organized, right? The Muslims are too, and if the whites on whole, or the Europeans on whole, the Germans, the Brits are not organized, but these Muslims are very organized.
Well,
and
it's changing.
if you have a 1% that is controlling our
Take a look at
country,
this.
what do you think this highly in-group preference group like Muslims can do with 10% or with 20%? They can take over
It's
our
30%
nation.
in my country.
30
30,
projection
okay.
is 30% by 2050. That's the high projection by 2050. If you're at 30% in Sweden, that's it. Sweden is gone. That is no longer Sweden. That is
Yes,
Swedistan.
You will have civil war way before that. You will have a cultural religious war way
Elrond.
before the 30%.
Yeah.
My time is very limited. I have to leave in like 2 minutes.
No worries.
I
What
just
else
want
do you
you
want to do?
Yeah, so Lister, he doesn't mention this stuff. So he's saying that you all are following conspiracy theories. Show this stuff from pure research. Medium and high, somewhere in between, it will be the truth. Meaning between 20 to 30% in my country. In your country, it's going to be around 16, 17%. If Banksy, if you can play like 2 minutes of this video, that would be
Which
very
video?
powerful. I have to leave now.
Let me go back.
Catch you guys later.
Are you posting the link in the side?
In the back chat, yeah.
Okay, no worries. I'll pick it up and I'll play it there.
Okay, later, guys.
Thanks, Simon. Have a good one, mate. Okay, guys, I'm gonna have to go. I actually have to be somewhere in a little while, so I will play this video and then I'll wrap it up because unfortunately this was meant to be just a half an hour thing, as always. As always, it was just meant to be a quick half an hour video, and it's now, oh, I don't know, I'm like 2 hours in. Hold on, that look of fear never gets old. Never gets old. That look of fear in Lister's eyes. Hold on, let me. I think the sound may not come through. Hold on. Oh yeah. Of course, that's Takia Watch's video. Let me just do the sharing again because I think Eliodor, you're not gonna hear it until I check the little box here.
Yeah, this is great. We need this very precise videos to make our points. I am always stating that not only having streams, but let's start a stream with a video like this, who's
Yeah.
addressing our points in depth, right? And for example, I have 2 videos I want to watch in a stream. It doesn't matter if we are on Takia Watch or on your channel or something.
Sure.
I have 2 videos that I really want to watch before we go into the stream. For example, the weapon of migration from what was it? I think Iconoclast or something has done this video.
Oh yes.
Yes, very important video. So let's watch the video first to have our points
Sure.
in depth made and then talk about it, right?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I would love to be able to do that at another time, but it's just right
Next
now,
time,
literally, in the
Yeah.
next 10 minutes. Well, literally in the next 5 minutes, I got to get out the door. So let me just have this few-minute video played. I hope it's not too long. I think it's pretty short. It's Takia Watch. It's one of Takia Watch's. I think it's one of Takia Watch's. Is it one of Takia? Yes, it is. It's one of his famous videos. Source in the video description. Is it playing?
Okay, so would you like to see Sharia law in Canada replace Canadian law?
At some point it will, because we have families, we are making babies. You're not. Your population is going down the slump, right? And by 2060, according to Pew Research Institute, your research, by 2060 Muslims will be the biggest religious group the world over. What are you going to do then?
Actually,
are you going to oppose Sharia is even then?
so you do support Sharia. You do want a Muslim majority nation in the West End, correct?
Just like you had a Western majority nation in the land of Native Americans, one day we can have a Muslim majority nation here in Canada. Right in your face.
Unsere Gesellschaft wird sich ändern. Unsere Stadt wird sich radikal verändern. Ich bin der Auffassung, dass wir in 20, 30 Jahren gar keine ethnischen Mehrheiten mehr haben in unserer Stadt. Das ist das, was wir haben werden in der Zukunft. Und ich sage Ihnen noch ganz deutlich, gerade hier in Richtung rechts, das ist gut so.
The world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth.
Okay, Takia Watch, you just copyrighted this this entire stream. I didn't want to. I mean, the thing is, the music he plays is mostly copyrighted as well, so the video will get a copyright claim for it because, yeah, unfortunately, it's impossible to get these things these things right sometimes. But you get the gist. I think it's gonna go on for quite a bit more. I will what's it called? I will put the link for this video in the main chat for anyone who's interested. Of course, you can go to Takia Watch's own channel and get all of this great stuff. It's just, yeah, it's gonna take ages, and I don't have that kind of time right now. Well, thank you, Elrondor,
man.
Elrondor. Is this like a Lord of the Rings reference?
Yes.
Elrondor. Yeah, I suspected that with your Legolas picture and everything as well. Okay, cool. Thank you for coming. Thank you for everyone. I'm just gonna try to.
Thank you for having me.
No, well, it's a pleasure. Let me just try to move my mouse. At the moment, my mouse is just frozen. Okay, computer is loosening up a little bit. But yeah, thank you, sir. I am gonna jump off this thing for now.
See you soon, man.
Take care, my good friend. Take care. Have a good one. Let me stop.
You too. Bye.
Take care. Bye. Stop sharing. And okay. Actually. Oh Christ! Why is this machine so slow? You infernal machine. Okay, yeah. This computer is like just seizing up on me, kids. Sorry about this. Okay, boys and girls. Well, I mean, again, Takia Watch's stream videos are incredibly good. So if you do want to see some more of that video and other videos like it, go to Takia Watch TV and watch all of that. 13.5, 13.5, Mr. Ralph, definitely. Or at least, certainly for the English, you should watch your ass and stop having these weak men, run the narrative in your countries. Have a good day, Nodaverse. Thank you, Takia Watch. Thank you, Lister, for coming on to the show. Thank you, Lister, for at least stepping up and trying to explain your position. I hope you had some reasonable amount of chance to do that. Again, I don't want anyone to think that they are not welcome or then they don't get a say if you jump on. If you jump on, you will always have your say. And there's Takia Watch. I think Takia Watch, is that your video? Yeah, if that's Takia Watch's video, there you go, guys. That's the video I just played. You can watch the rest of it on your at your own time and your own convenience. There was another video that I wanted to actually show, which I kind of didn't get a chance to play. Now, this was my personal take some time ago, and I made this video back in hello my dog. Whoops, I made it back in 2017, 29th of December 2017 to be precise. And this was my take. Now, although I don't really want to spend too much time on this because I don't actually have the time, I gotta run. I just want to give you guys a little flavor of what
Collins, if you just you
do it! Do it!
Everybody knows that the dice are loaded. Everybody rolls with their fingers crossed. Everybody knows the war is over. Everybody knows the good guys lost. Everybody knows that the fight was fixed. The poor stay poor, the rich get rich. That's how it goes. Everybody knows. Everybody knows the boat is leaking. Everybody knows the captain lied. their father or their dog just died. Everybody talking to their pockets. Everybody wants a box of chocolates and a long stem rose. Everybody knows.
Over the last year, I have noticed an explosion of MGTOW channels popping up all over social media, especially YouTube.
Anyway, guys, I don't want to labor it too much. I hope the symbology of those images were something that at least struck some sort of chord with you. It's the video is on my Banksy style channel. If you want to go see it, it's in regards to exactly what we were talking about: feminism, replacement, and also the MGTOWs, who will also be. But now the funny thing is, a lot of people think that it's just the feminism that is going to be detrimental, and liberal lefty thinking that's going to be detrimental to the future of these nations in Europe. I think you guys got to pay attention to the MGTOW movement too. Although I don't disagree with the MGTOWs, I'm just saying there are men who are checking out. Men are checking out of their responsibilities towards a family life. It's not just that women are not having enough children because they're going to work until their 30s. There are also men who no longer wish to have children with women, who no longer wish to be part of a family unit because the divorce courts are going to rape them. So if you don't address that half of that equation, it's not enough just to get women to want to have children and want to get married at a young age. You got to have men who are willing to also do that too. I don't think the men in this equation should be excluded. So yeah, I mean, I really could go on about that a lot more, but I just wanted to just quickly touch on that little. Looks more like me than Banksy. Sorry, yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the conversation was, but generally, yeah, there's two halves to this equation, guys. Yeah, you should check it out. I'm sorry, I'm reading some of the text here. I'm getting distracted. I gotta go. I got to go. It's getting late. Well, boys and girls, thank you, everyone. Thanks, Lister. Thanks, Ralph, Street, Based Welshman. Oh, God, I gotta read the name again. Erindor. I think it's Erindor. And everyone else in the chat, Sam M, Takia Watch, of course Sam from Takia Watch, you jumped on as well. Thank you for coming, and everyone else in the text, guys. I be honest, there's so many of you guys. Angel Moon, Jake O'Connor, love Jake O'Connor's movies. Noah, everyone that jumped on, thank you for coming. Thanks. There's too many names to mention here. Big up Raindrop, big up Shirky, Punk. Wow, there's just so many. But yeah, guys, thank you for showing up. I'm gonna try to play us out with a little something. Let's see if we can find some music to play us out with. And yeah, thanks for being you. Thanks for being. I honestly can't find a nice track when I want one. You can never find a good track when you need one. I think I've already fucked up the copyright on this anyway, so why am I looking for anything? What is this? This is no. What is that? Okay. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to find a nice track that we could all play out on. What's this? It's hard to find something that you can play with. There you go. That sounds pretty good. Thanks, guys. Don't forget, like, subscribe, comment, share, all that stuff, because it really helps, because YouTube doesn't like us. So have a good one, and you know what they say, tickle your ass with a feather. Ciao.